My wife Claire sobbed at family dinners, describing my brave battle with terminal lymphoma while collecting donations for my experimental treatment in Germany. Our teenage daughters planned my funeral songs while relatives mortgaged their homes to save me. $300,000 poured in from loving hearts, except I was perfectly healthy, working my janitor shifts at the distillery I secretly owned. When I finally revealed both truths in that bourbon-scented tasting room, Claire learned that some secrets are worth billions, and others cost everything. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. Chapter 1. The best lies are the ones we tell ourselves. I learned that truth sitting on my porch in Lexington, Kentucky, watching fireflies dance over bluegrass while my wife Claire hummed in the kitchen and my daughters argued over the TV remote. It was June 2008, one of those humid evenings where the air hung thick as molasses, and I remember thinking I had everything figured out. The creaky wooden boards beneath my boots, the sweet smell of honeysuckle mixing with distant bourbon aging in rick houses, it all felt permanent, solid as the limestone beneath Kentucky soil. "Dad, tell Juliet she can't hog the remote all night." Sadie's voice cut through the screen door, 16 years old and full of righteous indignation. "I'm watching my show," Juliet fired back, 14 and stubborn as her mother. I smiled, took another sip of sweet tea, and called back, "Work it out, girls. That's what the timer on the microwave's for." Simple solutions for simple problems. God, I miss when life was that easy. Claire pushed through the screen door then, carrying her own glass of tea, condensation already beating on the sides. She settled into the chair beside me with that particular sigh she'd perfected over 15 years of marriage, half contentment, half exhaustion. Her sandy blonde hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she still wore her scrubs from the clinic, little cartoon bears dancing across the fabric. Even tired, she was beautiful in that understated way that had first caught my attention all those years ago. "Long day?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Mrs. Henderson came in again, third time this month. Claire shook her head, but her eyes were soft with concern. Poor thing's convinced every ache is cancer. I spent an hour just holding her hand while Dr. Morrison ran the same tests we did last week. That was Claire always caring, always giving more than the job required. She'd stay late without overtime, buy groceries for patients who couldn't afford them, remember every grandkid's name. The other nurses called her St. Clair, and she'd blush and wave them off, but I knew she loved it. "You're too good for that place," I said, meaning it. She leaned over and kissed my cheek, her lips cool from the tea. "Says the man who mops floors for a living. We're quite the power couple, aren't we?" I laughed, but something twisted in my gut, that familiar knot of guilt that had been my constant companion for 3 years now, because Claire didn't know the truth. Nobody did, except for a handful of lawyers in Louisville and a bank manager sworn to secrecy. See, I wasn't just a janitor at Old Kentucky Bourbon Distillery. I owned it. All of it. The whole damn empire worth $1.7 billion, inherited from my father in 2005, along with enough family history to fill a library and more money than I knew what to do with. The irony wasn't lost on me. There I was, pushing a mop through the same halls where my great-great-grandfather had first learned to distill, where my father had built an empire, where portraits of my ancestors hung in the executive offices I pretended not to have access to. Every morning I'd punch in with the rest of the maintenance crew, and every evening I'd review quarterly reports in secret, signing off on million-dollar decisions from a laptop hidden in my truck. Why? That's the question I asked myself every day. The simple answer was love, or maybe fear, or maybe both twisted together like rope. I wanted to be loved for who I was, not for what I had. I'd seen what money did to people, how it changed them, revealed them, corrupted them. My father had taught me that lesson through 3 divorces, each wife taking a bigger piece of him until there was nothing left but bitterness and bourbon. "Money's like good whiskey," he'd told me once, already deep into a bottle of our best reserve. "It doesn't change a person, just reveals who they already were. Problem is, most people are bastards underneath." So when I met Claire at a hospital fundraiser there, representing the distillery's charitable arm, her serving punch and making small talk, I introduced myself as just Asher, maintenance worker. No Davis dynasty, no bourbon empire, no trust funds or investment portfolios, just a guy with calloused hands and a steady paycheck. And she'd loved me anyway. Or at least, I thought she did. "Mama, can we get new phones for Christmas?" Juliet's voice drifted through the window. "Everyone at school has those new flip ones with cameras." "We'll see, honey," Claire called back, but I caught the tightness in her voice. "Those are expensive." "Maybe we could swing it," I said carefully. "I've been picking up some overtime." Claire squeezed my hand. "You work too hard as it is. We're doing fine. The girls don't need every new gadget." Fine. We were always fine in Claire's vocabulary. Our 300-square-foot ranch house with its peeling shutters and temperamental water heater was fine. Our 10-year-old Honda with the check engine light that never turned off was fine. Shopping at Walmart and clipping coupons was fine. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at magazines in the grocery store, check out the ones with perfect kitchens and vacation homes, and her face would get this wistful expression before she'd shake it off and put the magazine back. Those moments killed me. I could buy her 100 kitchens, 1,000 vacations, but I'd trapped myself in this lie. The truth was, I'd been planning to tell her. Every anniversary, every Christmas, every time she mentioned wanting something just out of reach. But then I'd remember my father's words, or I'd think about how pure our love was without money complicating it, and I'd swallow the confession like bourbon that burned all the way down. "Remember when we first moved here?" Claire asked suddenly, her voice soft with memory. "You promised me we'd build something together, start small, grow together." "I remember." "I wouldn't change a thing," she said, and for a moment I believed her. "Money isn't everything, Asher. Having you, the girls, this life, it's enough, it's more than enough." The fireflies seemed to pulse brighter in the gathering dark, and I squeezed her hand back, feeling like the worst kind of fraud. Not because I was hiding money, but because I was testing her, had been testing her for years without her knowledge. What kind of husband does that to his wife? "I love you," I said, meaning it desperately. "Love you too," she replied automatically, already standing. "I should check on dinner. Lasagna tonight, your favorite." After she went inside, I sat alone on the porch, listening to the sounds of my family. Sadie and Juliet's bickering turned to laughter. Claire's off-key humming from the kitchen, the canned sound of whatever show they'd settled on. It was a symphony of normalcy, of middle-class American contentment. I pulled out my phone, nothing fancy, just a basic Nokia, and checked the encrypted email account I used for business. 3 messages from the board, 2 from our distribution manager in Japan, 1 from an investor group interested in acquiring our limited edition line. Millions of dollars in decisions waiting for my input, all while my wife stretched grocery money to make my favorite dinner. The last email was from my attorney, reminding me about a clause in my father's will I'd almost forgotten about, the medical fraud protection clause. Dad had put it in after his second wife tried to fake a nervous breakdown to get a bigger settlement. It stated that any heir or spouse who committed fraud related to medical conditions would forfeit all claims to the family fortune and face prosecution to the full extent of the law. "Paranoid old bastard," I muttered, closing the phone. It seemed like such a specific, unnecessary provision. What were the odds anyone would try something like that? I should have paid more attention to that document, should have recognized it as the weapon it would become. But that night, sitting on my porch with the sounds of my family washing over me like baptismal water, I thought I was the only one keeping secrets. The screen door squeaked open again, and Sadie stuck her head out. "Dad, Mom says dinner's ready, and she made that garlic bread you like." "Be right there, sweetheart." I stood, bones creaking, 43 years old, and already feeling it from 8 hours of honest work that wasn't really honest at all. As I turned to go inside, I caught my reflection in the window. Work boots worn at the heels, jeans with a legitimate hole in the knee, a Carhartt shirt that had seen better days. I looked exactly like what I pretended to be, a working man, salt of the earth, backbone of America. The dining room was cramped but cozy, barely big enough for our scratched oak table that Claire had found at a yard sale and refinished herself. She'd set it with our good dishes, the ones we'd gotten as wedding gifts and only used for special occasions, though tonight wasn't special in any way I knew about. "What's the occasion?" I asked, pulling out my chair. Claire blushed slightly. "Can't a wife make a nice dinner for her family?" "Aw, Mom's getting sentimental," Juliet teased, but she was smiling. "Maybe I'm just grateful," Claire said, serving the lasagna with practiced efficiency. "We have our health, our home, each other. That's more than a lot of people can say." She was right, of course. We had everything that mattered. But as I watched her portion out the lasagna, giving me the biggest piece, herself the smallest, I wondered if I'd confused testing her with protecting her. Maybe keeping the money secret wasn't about trust at all, but about my own fear of change, of losing this simple, perfect life we'd built on a foundation of lies. "Dad, you're spacey tonight," Sadie observed, waving her fork at me. "Everything okay at work?" "Just tired, honey. Big shipment came in today, hundreds of barrels to move." It wasn't entirely a lie. A shipment had come in, though I'd approved it from my phone while pretending to clean the executive bathroom. The barrels contained our newest experimental blend, a potential game-changer in the premium market. I'd overseen every detail of its development while maintaining my cover as a janitor who happened to have strong opinions about bourbon. "I don't know how you do it," Claire said, reaching over to rub my shoulder. "All that physical labor in this heat. My hero." The word hit me like a slap. Hero. If she only knew that my biggest physical challenge most days was maintaining the charade, that the calluses on my hands were as much from gripping secrets as from gripping mop handles. "Speaking of work," Claire continued, her tone shifting to something I couldn't quite identify, "I might need to pick up some extra shifts at the clinic, just for a while." "Everything okay?" I asked, immediately concerned. "Of course, just, Christmas will be here before we know it, and the girls are getting older, wanting more expensive things." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Plus, Owen's been hinting about updating some equipment at the clinic. Might be a good opportunity to show initiative, maybe angle for that promotion Dr. Morrison mentioned." "You deserve that promotion," I said firmly. "You run that place already." "Well, we'll see. Anyway, don't wait up for me the next few weeks. Might have some late nights." Something flickered in my chest, not quite suspicion, more like awareness, like when you notice the temperature dropping before a storm. But I pushed it away. This was Claire, my Claire. St. Clair, who held old ladies' hands and remembered everyone's birthday. After dinner, we fell into our routine, Claire washing, me drying, the girls supposedly doing homework but probably texting on the phones they complained weren't good enough. It was domestic choreography we'd perfected over years, moving around each other with practiced ease. "Remember our first apartment?" Claire asked suddenly, hands deep in soapy water. "That studio in Louisville with the radiator that sounded like a ghost?" "And the neighbors who fought every Friday night," I added, smiling at the memory. "We said we'd upgrade as soon as we could afford it. Took us 3 years to move to a one-bedroom." She handed me a plate, our fingers brushing in the exchange. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd had money from the start. Would we have been as happy? My throat tightened. "What makes you ask that?" She shrugged. "Just thinking. Julie Morrison, Dr. Morrison's wife, she was telling me about their vacation home in Florida. Must be nice, But then she also told me they barely see each other, both working constantly to maintain that lifestyle." Claire turned to look at me directly. "I'd rather have this us together, even if it means clipping coupons and driving old cars." "Me too," I said, and meant it, even as the weight of my deception pressed down like a physical thing. That night, after Claire had fallen asleep beside me, her breath even and peaceful, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan making its slow rotations. My father's portrait hung in the distillery's main office, stern face, eyes that seemed to follow you, holding a glass of bourbon like it was the Holy Grail. What would he think of what I'd done? Would he call me a fool for hiding our fortune, or smart for protecting it? "You can't protect what you won't claim," he'd probably say, "and you can't claim what you're afraid to own." But I wasn't afraid of the money. I was afraid of what it would reveal about the people I loved, about Claire. In the darkness, she shifted beside me, murmuring something I couldn't make out. Her hand found mine under the covers, fingers interlacing with the unconscious trust of long marriage. How many nights had we lain like this, her unaware of the empire that existed just beyond her knowledge, me unable to bridge that gap? I thought about the medical fraud protection clause, filed away with all the other legal documents that governed my secret life. Such a strange, specific thing to include in a will. But then, my father had always been specific about protection, about watching for threats to the family fortune. People will do anything for money, he'd said. Lie, cheat, steal, fake illness, fake love, fake entire lives. Trust no one completely, son. Not even especially not the ones who say they love you. I'd thought him paranoid, bitter from his divorces. Now lying next to my wife of 15 years, keeper of my own massive secret, I wondered if he'd just been realistic. Tomorrow, I told myself, tomorrow I'd start finding a way to tell Claire the truth, ease her into it somehow. Maybe start with small revelations, a bonus at work, a distant relative leaving a small inheritance. Build up to the full truth gradually, give her time to adjust. But tomorrow came, as it always did, with packed lunches and rushed breakfasts, and Claire kissing me goodbye with coffee on her breath and love in her eyes, or what I thought was love. Tomorrow came with work boots and time clocks and the familiar weight of the mop bucket, the smell of industrial cleaner mixing with the sweet undercurrent of aging bourbon. Tomorrow came, and I kept my secret, not knowing that Claire was already keeping hers. Looking back now from this distance, I can see all the signs I missed. The way she'd started asking about life insurance policies, the extra shifts that never showed up on her pay stubs, the new perfume she claimed was a gift, the way she'd look at me sometimes when she thought I wasn't watching calculating, measuring like a distiller checking specific gravity. But that night in June 2008, with fireflies dancing and my family safe under one roof, I thought the only lie in our house was mine. I thought I was the only one with shadows in my heart, the only one measuring love against truth and finding the scales unbalanced. The best lies are the ones we tell ourselves. And Lord, was I good at it. Chapter 2. January in Kentucky comes in like a boxer. All harsh winds and gray skies that press down on you until you forget the sun exists. It was 2010, and I remember that particular January starting with an ice storm that knocked out power lines and gave everything a crystalline coating that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so damn destructive. Claire had been working late shifts for over a year by then. The extra hours she'd mentioned had become routine, and our family dinners had shifted from 7 to 8, sometimes 9 when she'd call to say she'd grab something at the hospital. I'd gotten used to reheating her plate, leaving it covered on the stove, finding it half-eaten in the morning. "Mom's never home anymore," Juliet complained that night, stabbing at her pot roast with unnecessary violence. 16 now, she'd developed Claire's stubborn streak, and my tendency to bottle things up until they exploded. "She's working hard for us," I said, the defense automatic. "That promotion's coming up soon." "She's been saying that for 2 years," Sadie pointed out. 18 and headed to UK in the fall, she'd grown observant in ways that sometimes unsettled me. "Besides, Jennifer's mom works at the clinic too, and she says they haven't hired any extra evening staff." My fork paused halfway to my mouth. "Maybe she's covering different departments." "Maybe," Sadie said, but her tone suggested she wasn't buying it. The front door opened just as we were clearing dishes, bringing with it a gust of frozen air and Claire, cheeks flushed pink, breathing like she'd been running. Her scrubs were pristine, too pristine for someone who'd just worked a 12-hour shift. Sorry. She kicked off her shoes, pecked each girl on the cheek as they passed her heading to their rooms. "Emergency surgery ran long. Poor Mr. Patterson's appendix. You know how these things go." "I saved you dinner," I said, already moving to the stove. "Oh, honey, I'm stuffed. Grabbed a sandwich in the break room." She was at the sink, washing her hands with the thoroughness of someone who'd spent years in medicine. "I'm going to shower and crash. Early morning tomorrow." That's when I smelled an expensive perfume cutting through the antiseptic smell that usually clung to her after work. Something floral and complex, nothing like the drugstore body spray she'd worn for years. "New perfume?" I asked, keeping my tone light, casual. Her hand stilled under the water for just a second. "What? Oh yeah, Mrs. Hendricks gave it to me. You remember? The patient with the chronic anxiety? She ordered it from some fancy catalog and decided she was allergic. Shame to waste it, right?" "Right," I agreed, but something cold was uncurling in my stomach. She kissed me quick, efficient, her lips cool, and headed upstairs. I stood in the kitchen listening to her footsteps, the shower turning on, the familiar sounds of our nighttime routine. But it all felt off-key somehow, like a piano that needed tuning. Later that night, I lay awake beside her, studying the ceiling fan's lazy rotation. Claire slept curled away from me, something she'd started doing recently. For her back, she said. The mattress was getting old, wasn't giving proper support. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Then again, 2:47 a.m. glowed on the alarm clock. Claire stirred, hand shooting out to grab the phone before it could buzz again. She looked at the screen, then slipped out of bed with practiced stealth. I kept my breathing even, eyes barely cracked open as she padded to the door. Through the gap, I watched her creep down the hallway toward the stairs, the phone screen illuminating her face in pale blue light. 20 minutes passed. 30. When she finally came back, she smelled like winter. She'd been outside, on the porch maybe, or in the garage. Somewhere she thought I wouldn't hear. "Everything okay?" I asked, making my voice drowsy. She startled. "Oh yes, just Finn. You know how he gets." Girl trouble. Finn was her younger brother, 28 and perpetually in and out of relationships. It was plausible. Everything Claire said was plausible. At 3 in the morning? He's on West Coast time. Forgets the difference. She slid back into bed, her feet ice cold against my legs. "Go back to sleep, honey." But I couldn't. I lay there feeling like I was standing on ice, hearing the first crack spread beneath my feet, not sure if I should run or stand perfectly still. The next few weeks brought more cracks. Small things that wouldn't have mattered individually, but together formed a pattern I couldn't ignore. Claire started guarding her phone like it contained state secrets. She'd flip it face down during dinner, take it with her to the bathroom, sleep with it under her pillow. When it rang, she'd check the caller ID before answering, sometimes letting it go to voicemail even when she wasn't busy. Her story started developing holes. She'd mentioned covering for Dr. Patterson's patient. But I'd run into Dr. Patterson at the gas station and he'd say he hadn't been in surgery for weeks. She'd claim overtime pay was going toward the girls' college funds, but our bank statements showed the same deposits as always. Then there were the questions. "Honey, do we have good life insurance?" she asked one night while we were watching the news. "A story about a plane crash, families left behind." "The basic package from your work," I said carefully. "Why?" "Just thinking." "We're getting older. We should be more prepared." She was painting her toenails, careful strokes of coral pink. "What if something happened to one of us?" "Like what?" She shrugged. "Anything. Car accident, cancer, heart attack. Your family has a history of heart problems, right? My family had a history of living into their 90s and dying peacefully in their sleep, usually with a glass of bourbon in hand." "Some," I lied, curious where this was going. "Maybe we should get checked, full physicals. When's the last time you saw Dr. Thompson?" 6 months ago. Clean bill of health." I watched her face carefully. "You were there, remember? You drove me because my truck was in the shop." "Right." She capped the nail polish, blew on her toes. "I just worry about you, all that physical labor, the stress." "What stress?" I wanted to ask. "The stress of pretending to be poor? The stress of watching you pretend everything's normal when we both know it's not?" Instead, I said, "I'm fine, Claire, strong as an ox." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course you are." February brought the discovery that would shatter the ice completely. I'd been looking for our tax documents, needing some receipts for the return. Claire usually handled that stuff. She was more organized, she said, but she was at another late shift and the deadline was coming up. Her filing system was meticulous, everything labeled and color-coded. tax returns going back 7 years, insurance documents, birth certificates, the girls' school records, and there, in a manila envelope marked Medical Confidential in Claire's neat handwriting, papers that made my blood run cold. Oncology reports from Baptist Health Louisville. Test results showing elevated white blood cell counts, recommendations for aggressive treatment, CAT scan images of lymph nodes, circled and annotated, all dated within the last 3 months, all with my name on them. My hands shook as I read through them. Stage 4 lymphoma. Prognosis poor without immediate intervention. Recommendations for experimental treatment in Germany, not covered by insurance, estimated cost $300,000. I sat back in the desk chair, papers spreading across my lap. The office spun slightly, and I had to grip the armrests to steady myself. This wasn't possible. I hadn't been to Baptist Health in years, hadn't had any tests done, hadn't seen any oncologist. These dates, I checked my mental calendar. I'd been at work, at the distillery, reviewing the new bottling line, having lunch with the secretly mine board of directors while pretending to fix a leak in the conference room. I looked closer at the documents. The letterhead was perfect, the formatting precise. But the signature Dr. Martin Reeves was just slightly off. I'd seen enough forged signatures on bad checks at the distillery to recognize one. These documents were fake, which meant Claire had faked them, which meant the front door opened downstairs. Claire's voice, calling out that she was home. I shoved the papers back in the envelope, slid it back exactly where I'd found it. By the time she made it upstairs, I was in the bedroom pretending to fold laundry. "You're still up," she said, surprised. "Couldn't sleep." My voice sounded normal. How did it sound normal? How was work? Exhausting. 2 car accidents came in, place was chaos. She was already stripping off her scrubs, heading for the shower. "I'm dead on my feet." I watched her go. This woman I'd shared a bed with for 17 years, and felt like I was seeing a stranger wearing my wife's face. That night, I called Dr. Reed Thompson from my truck, parked at the far end of the distillery lot where no one would see me. "Asher, it's nearly midnight. Everything okay?" "Reed, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." "Of course." "Have you referred me to any specialist recently? Oncologists, specifically?" A long pause. "No. Why would I? You're healthy as a horse. Your last blood work was perfect." "You're sure?" "Asher, what's this about?" "I can't say yet. But if anyone asks anyone at all, can you confirm I'm not your patient for any cancer treatment?" "Of course, but Asher, you're scaring me." "I'll explain when I can." "Thanks, Reed." I hung up and sat in the darkness, watching snow start to fall on the windshield. In the distance, the distillery's rickhouses stood like monuments to patience, to the slow transformation of raw spirit into something complex and valuable. My father used to say that bourbon couldn't be rushed, that time would reveal its true character. Time, it seemed, was revealing Claire's. The next morning was a Saturday. Claire made pancakes, humming that same off-key tune she'd hummed for years. The girls slouched at the table in their pajamas, Sadie texting rapidly while Juliet read a book. "Dad, you look tired," Juliet observed, glancing up from her pages. "Didn't sleep well," I admitted. "You should take something," Claire said, flipping a pancake with practiced ease. "I could get you some Ambien from the clinic." "I'm fine." She set a plate in front of me, pancakes stacked high, butter melting into golden pools. "You work too hard. Maybe you should think about cutting back, taking it easier." "We need the money," I said, watching her carefully. Something flickered across her face. "Money isn't everything. Your health is more important." "I'm healthy. For now." She turned back to the stove. "But we never know what tomorrow might bring." "No," I thought, watching her shoulders tense under her robe. "We certainly don't." I spent the next week in a kind of suspended animation, going through the motions of normalcy while my mind raced. Should I confront her? Hire a private investigator? Pretend I hadn't seen anything and hope it went away? At the distillery, I threw myself into work, real work, not the pretend kind. I scrubbed floors that were already clean, reorganized supply closets that didn't need it, anything to keep my hands busy while my thoughts churned. "You okay, Ash?" Tommy, one of the other janitors, asked. "You've been attacking them floors like they owe you money." "Just thinking," I said. "Dangerous habit," Tommy laughed. "That's why I don't do it." But I couldn't stop. The equation kept running through my head. Claire had fake cancer documents for me. Claire was lying about her whereabouts. Claire was asking about life insurance. The answer was obvious, but I couldn't face it. Not yet. Instead, I did what I'd always done. I watched and waited. Claire's late nights became later, her excuses more elaborate. Once she came home with her scrubs inside out, claiming she'd had to change after a patient vomited on her. Another time, she forgot she'd already used the emergency surgery excuse that week and recycled it, not noticing my raised eyebrow. The girls noticed, too. Sadie started making pointed comments about missing family dinners. Juliet withdrew, spending more time in her room, emerging only for meals and school. "Is everything okay with you and Mom?" Sadie asked one evening while Claire was at another late shift. "Why do you ask?" She gave me a look that was pure Claire direct, no-nonsense. "Because you guys barely talk anymore. And when you do, it's like you're reading from a script." "We're just tired," I said. "Work's been tough for both of us. Dad." Her voice was gentle but firm. "I'm leaving for college in 6 months. If something's wrong, I'd rather know now." What could I tell her? That I suspected her mother was planning to fake my death for insurance money? That the woman who'd raised her, who'd kissed her scraped knees and attended every school play, was capable of something so monstrous? "Everything's fine, sweetheart," I lied. "Just a rough patch." She didn't believe me, but she let it go. That night, I sat in my home office, really just a converted closet with a desk and filing cabinet, and pulled out the envelope again. This time, I photographed every document with my phone, emailing them to an encrypted account only I could access. Then I did something I should have done years ago. I started protecting myself. I changed the passwords on all my personal accounts, set up a separate bank account Claire didn't know about, funneling small amounts from my overtime into it. Started documenting everything: dates, times, inconsistencies in her stories. And I waited, because Bourbon had taught me patience, had taught me that sometimes the best thing to do was nothing at all, to let time and pressure do their work until the truth revealed itself, amber and undeniable. The crack in the facade had become a fissure. Soon I knew the whole thing would shatter. I just had to be ready when it did. Looking back, I wonder if I should have confronted her then, sat her down, showed her the documents, demanded an explanation. Maybe there was one. Maybe it was all some terrible misunderstanding. But deep down, in that place where we keep truths we don't want to acknowledge, I knew better. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd thought I was testing all these years, had been testing me too, and we'd both failed. Chapter 3. October 2010 hit Kentucky like a painting, all rust and gold, the maples turning fired while morning frost silvered the bluegrass. I'd always loved fall at the distillery. When the tourists came in droves for the Bourbon Trail, their excited chatter mixing with the sweet smell of mash cooking. But that October, I barely noticed the beauty. I was too busy watching my life unravel thread by careful thread. The bank statement arrived on a Tuesday. I usually let Claire handle the finances part of maintaining my cover as the simple working man who trusted his wife with the household management. But that morning something made me grab the mail before she could. There it was, nestled between a credit card offer and a furniture store circular. Our joint savings account, nearly emptied. $10,000 withdrawn in a single transaction, dated the previous Friday when I'd been at work and Claire had supposedly been at the clinic. I sat at the kitchen table, statement spread before me like evidence at a crime scene, coffee growing cold in my mug. $10,000. Not a fortune by my real standards, but for the family we pretended to be, that was years of scrimping, saving, clipping coupons. That was Sadie's first year of college, Juliet's braces, the new roof we'd been putting off. "Morning, honey." Claire breezed in, already dressed in fresh scrubs, hair pulled back in her efficient ponytail. She kissed my cheek, her lips warm, her perfume that expensive one again making my stomach turn. "You're up early?" Couldn't sleep. I kept my voice steady, folding the statement casually. "Coffee's fresh." She poured herself a cup, added 2 sugars. No cream, same as always. How could someone be so consistent in small things and so deceptive in large ones? What's that? She nodded at the papers in my hand. Bank statement. Her hand paused for just a fraction of a second, coffee mug halfway to her lips. Anything interesting? There's a withdrawal here I don't remember making. 10,000. The mug made it to her lips. She sipped carefully, thoughtfully. Oh, that. Yes. I meant to tell you. Tell me what? She sat across from me, reaching for my hand. Her fingers were cold despite the warm mug. There's a patient at the clinic, Maria Gonzalez. Single mother, 3 kids. Her youngest has leukemia. I waited. They were going to lose their house, Asher, while their baby was dying. I couldn't just stand by. Her eyes welled with tears, real or performed. I couldn't tell anymore. I know I should have asked, but you were at work, and the bank was going to foreclose that day. I set up a medical fund through the clinic, made the donation in our name. $10,000, Claire? It saved their home, gave them time to focus on what matters. She squeezed my hand tighter. I know it was a lot, but imagine if it were our girls. Wouldn't you want someone to help? The story was perfect. Humanitarian, urgent, designed to make me feel guilty for questioning it. Classic Claire, or at least, this new version of her I was discovering. I'd like to meet them, I said. The family. Maybe we could help in other ways, too. Something flickered in her eyes. They're very private, and with HIPAA laws, but you just said the donation was in our name. Through the clinic's fund, it's complicated. She stood, dumping her barely touched coffee in the sink. I have to go. Early meeting. She was out the door before I could respond, leaving me with the cold coffee and the bitter taste of lies. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I left work early, told my supervisor I had a family emergency, which wasn't entirely untrue. Instead of heading home, I drove to the public library in the next town over, where no one would recognize me. I researched Maria Gonzalez at the clinic, found nothing, searched for foreclosure notices in our area, nothing matching that story, looked up medical fundraising through local clinics. The only one that came up was something called Hope for Heart's Cancer Fund, registered just 2 months ago. The director was listed as C. Davis, Claire Davis, but the fund's treasurer, the person authorized to withdraw money, Caleb Wilson. I stared at the screen, the name burning into my retinas. Caleb Wilson. Who the hell was Caleb Wilson? A quick search revealed he worked at the clinic had started 8 months ago as an administrative coordinator. His LinkedIn photo showed a good-looking man in his late 30s, dark hair, easy smile. The kind of smile that made husbands nervous. I printed everything, folded the papers carefully, tucked them into my jacket. Evidence. I was collecting evidence now, like a detective in one of those crime shows Claire loved to watch. Find what you were looking for? The librarian asked as I passed her desk. More than I wanted to, I admitted. Outside, October wind scattered leaves across the parking lot, and I sat in my truck for a long time, engine off, watching families come and go from the library. Normal families with normal problems, not families built on foundations of lies, where wives invented dying children to steal money, and husbands hid bourbon empires in plain sight. When I got home, Sadie was in the kitchen doing homework, Juliet beside her struggling with algebra. "Hey, Dad," Sadie said without looking up. "Mom called. Another late night. There's leftover meatloaf in the fridge." "Thanks, sweetheart." "Dad?" Juliet's voice was small. "Is Mom okay? She seems different lately." I sat down beside her, helped her factor an equation. Different how? I don't know. Distracted, I guess. And she cries sometimes when she thinks we're not looking. When? Yesterday, I came home early from practice and she was in her room, on the phone, crying. When she saw me, she pretended she was laughing, but her mascara was all smudged. Sadie and I exchanged glances over Juliet's head. My older daughter's expression said she'd noticed things too, things she wasn't sharing in front of her younger sister. People go through phases, I said carefully. Work stress, probably. Maybe, Juliet said, but she didn't sound convinced. After dinner, after homework and showers and good nights, I sat in my office with the door locked, reviewing everything I'd gathered. Bank statements showing irregular patterns. Credit card charges at restaurants when Claire was supposedly at work. The cancer documents I'd found. Now this charity fund with a stranger's name attached. I picked up my phone, hesitated, then dialed. Reed, it's Asher. Sorry to call so late. No problem. Everything okay? You sounded worried last time. I need a favor. Can you write me a letter stating I've never been diagnosed with cancer? Make it official on letterhead? Asher, what's going on? I can't explain yet, but it's important. Life and death important. Jesus, okay, I'll have it ready tomorrow. Want me to mail it? I'll pick it up. And Reed, don't mention this to anyone, especially not anyone from the clinic. You're scaring me, buddy. Yeah, I said, looking at the evidence spread across my desk. I'm scaring myself. The next morning, Claire was already gone when I woke. A note on the kitchen counter. Early shift, late meeting. Love you. Love you. The words sat in my stomach like spoiled milk. I got the girls off to school, then called in sick to work second time in 10 years. Instead of heading to the distillery, I drove to Louisville, to a law firm I'd researched online. Not my family's lawyers who handled the Bourbon Empire, but someone completely separate, someone who specialized in divorce and fraud. Margaret Chen's office was on the 15th floor, all glass and chrome with a view of the Ohio River. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with shrewd eyes that took in my work clothes and calloused hands without judgment. Mr. Davis, you said on the phone this was urgent? I laid out everything. The fake medical documents, the missing money, the questionable charity. I didn't mention the bourbon fortune, not yet. That was a card I'd play when necessary. She listened, taking notes in precise handwriting. When I finished, she leaned back, fingers steepled. You have strong evidence of fraud, possibly theft, but you need more to protect yourself fully, especially regarding your daughters. What kind of more? Proof of the affair, if there is one. Documentation of all financial irregularities. Record conversations if Kentucky law allows it does, by the way, with one-party consent. She studied me. Are you prepared for where this might lead? Divorce? Prison. For her. The word hit like cold water. Prison. Claire in prison. The mother of my children. The woman I'd loved for 17 years, in an orange jumpsuit behind bars. I need to think. Think fast, Margaret said. If she's escalating, and it sounds like she is, you need to protect yourself now. Transfer assets, secure important documents, make sure your children are safe. Safe. Did she think Claire would hurt the girls? She would never. Mr. Davis, a woman who would fake your cancer diagnosis has already crossed lines most people never even approach. Don't assume you know her limits. I left her office with a retainer agreement and a list of steps to take. It felt like carrying a loaded gun, dangerous and necessary in equal measure. That evening, Claire came home at a reasonable hour for once, carrying takeout Chinese and wearing a smile that almost looked genuine. Family dinner? She announced brightly. I realized we haven't done this in ages. The girls perked up and we sat around the table like we used to, passing containers of lo mein and orange chicken, fortune cookies scattered between us. This is nice, Juliet said, and I saw Claire's face soften. I've been working too much, she admitted. Missing what matters. I'm going to do better. For a moment, just a moment, I let myself believe her. Let myself think maybe this was all some terrible misunderstanding, that the woman I'd married was still in there, fighting her way back to us. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her whole demeanor changed, shoulders tensing, jaw tightening. I have to take this. Work emergency. She stepped onto the back porch, but through the window, I could see her pacing, gesticulating, clearly arguing with someone. When she came back, her smile was forced, brittle. Everything okay? I asked. Fine. Just a staffing issue. She sat back down, but the moment was broken. We finished dinner in relative silence, the girls escaping to their rooms as soon as they could. While Claire showered, I did something I'd never thought I'd do. I went through her purse. Her phone was there, password protected. Her wallet, full of the usual cards and receipts. And there, tucked into an inner pocket, a business card. Caleb Wilson, Healthcare Administration Specialist. On the back, in handwriting that wasn't Claire's, "You deserve better. Call me." I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. Not just fraud, then. An affair, or the beginning of one. That night, as Claire slept beside me, I lay awake planning. Not revenge, not yet, but protection. For myself, for the girls, for the fortune Claire didn't know existed. I thought about my father's paranoid clause about medical fraud. Had he experienced something similar? Had one of his ex-wives tried something like this? Suddenly, his paranoia didn't seem so paranoid. Around 3 a.m., my phone vibrated, a text from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but I know what your wife is doing. Meet me tomorrow noon at the Riverside Cafe in Louisville. Come alone. S.R." S.R.? Who was S.R.? I deleted the text, but memorized the details. Another piece of the puzzle, maybe, or another trap. At this point, I couldn't tell the difference, but I'd go. Of course I'd go. Because the red flags weren't just waving anymore, they were screaming in the wind, and I needed to know what storm they were warning me about before it made landfall and destroyed everything I'd built, everything I'd hidden, everything I'd loved. Chapter 4. February in Kentucky can't make up its mind one day it's spring. The next, it's winter clawing back with frozen fingers. That February of 2011, the weather matched my mood. Unpredictable, volatile, ready to turn violent without warning. The text from SR had led to Stella Rodriguez, an investigative journalist with the Lexington Herald who'd been tracking suspicious charity funds. She'd noticed patterns in several organizations, including Hope for Hearts, and Claire's name kept surfacing. We'd formed an uneasy alliance. She'd hold her story if I fed her information. It felt like betraying Claire. But then, Claire had already betrayed everyone. The family gathering was Owen Brown's idea. Claire's mother called on a Thursday, her voice bright with forced cheer. "Sunday dinner," she announced, not asked. 2 o'clock. Everyone's coming, even your Lauren's driving down from Cincinnati. Lauren. My daughter from my first marriage, 23 now, working as a graphic designer. She and Claire had always had a complicated relationship, civil but never warm, like roommates who tolerated each other for the lease's sake. "Any special occasion?" I asked. Owen paused. "Just family. We need more family time." Something in her voice made my skin prickle. Sunday arrived gray and bitter, ice coating the trees like nature's conspiracy to make everything look prettier than it was. The girls dressed reluctantly, Sadie in jeans and a sweater, Juliet in the dress Claire insisted on. Claire herself spent an hour getting ready, applying makeup with the precision of someone preparing for battle. "You look nice," I offered as we loaded into the car. "Thanks." She was checking her phone again, fingers flying across the screen. "Owen wants this to be special." "Any idea why?" She shrugged, but her knuckles were white around the phone. The drive to Owen's took 40 minutes through countryside that alternated between beautiful and bleak. Claire stared out the window, occasionally reaching over to touch my hand, as if reassuring herself I was there. "Whatever happens today," she said suddenly, "remember that I love you." "Claire." "What?" "Just remember." Owen's house sat on 5 acres outside Lexington, a sprawling ranch style that Claire's late father had built with his own hands. Usually pulling up to it felt like coming home. Today, it felt like approaching a courthouse. The moment we walked in, I knew something was orchestrated. The furniture was arranged differently, chairs pulled into a semicircle facing the fireplace. Claire's brother Finn was there with his wife, several cousins, an aunt and uncle I hadn't seen in years, and everyone looked like they'd been crying. Owen descended on me immediately, pulling me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. She smelled like lavender and grief. "My brave, brave son-in-law," she sobbed into my shoulder. "The miracle worked. God answered our prayers." I stood frozen, Claire's hand on my back, Sadie and Juliet beside me looking confused. Over Owen's shoulder, I saw Finn watching us, his expression unreadable. "Mom," Claire said, her voice high and strange. "Maybe we should—" Sit. Owen pulled back, mascara streaming down her cheeks. "Everyone sit. We have so much to be thankful for." We arranged ourselves awkwardly, the girls and I on a couch, Claire perched on the arm beside me like she might need to run. The room felt electric with something anticipation, dread. I couldn't tell. Owen stood before the fireplace, clutching a tissue. I wanted everyone together to celebrate, to give thanks. When Claire told us about Asher's diagnosis, the world tilted. We thought we were going to lose him. Terminal lymphoma, the doctors said. But look at him now. The treatment in Germany worked. I felt every eye in the room on me. Felt Sadie stiffen beside me. Felt Juliet's sharp intake of breath. What? My voice came out steady, controlled. Years of business negotiations had taught me to never show surprise. What treatment? Owen's smile faltered. The cancer treatment. The one we all contributed to. $300,000 for the experimental therapy in Munich. $300,000. I turned to look at Claire. She was white as paper, her mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. I've never had cancer, I said, each word clear and deliberate. I've never been to Germany, and I've certainly never had any treatment. The silence that followed was complete, the kind that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. Then Sadie's voice, small and terrified. Dad? Mom said you were dying. She said that's why she was working so much, to pay for treatment. I looked at my daughter, saw the devastation in her eyes, then at Juliet, who was crying silently, tears rolling down her cheeks. Your mother lied! The room exploded. Finn jumped to his feet. What the fuck, Claire? We gave you our savings. Emma and I took out a second mortgage. There's a misunderstanding, Claire stammered, standing now, hands fluttering like dying birds. The doctors, they were wrong, it wasn't cancer. Stop. My voice cut through the chaos. I pulled out my phone, found the photos I'd taken of the fake medical documents, and handed it to Owen. These are the documents Claire hid in our house. Forged medical records claiming I had terminal cancer. Owen looked at the phone, then at Claire, her face crumbling. Claire Marie Davis, what have you done? It's not I can explain Asher was sick. He was. Dr. Reed Thompson is my physician, I interrupted, pulling out the letter Reed had written. This confirms I've never had cancer, never been referred to an oncologist, never been sick with anything more serious than a cold. Finn snatched the letter, read it, then threw it at Claire. You stole from your own family? From Mom? Claire was cornered now, literally backed against the wall, and something shifted in her face. The mask she'd been wearing, caring wife, devoted mother, cracked and fell away. You want to know the truth? Her voice was different now, harder. Fine. Yes, I took the money. But Asher, perfect, honest Asher, he's been lying too. Haven't you, honey? Want to tell them about your secret bank accounts? Your hidden assets? She was fishing, trying to deflect, but she'd hit closer to home than she knew. Still, this wasn't the time for my revelations. We're not talking about me, I said calmly. We're talking about you defrauding your family, about you telling our children their father was dying. Mom? Juliet's voice was broken. You said Dad was sick. You said that's why you cried at night. You said, I did it for us. Claire's composure shattered completely. For our future. Asher barely makes anything. We're drowning in bills. The girls need college funds. So you decided to steal? Owen's voice was ice. From your own mother? Your brother? It wasn't stealing. It was borrowing. I was going to pay it back. With what? Finn demanded. More lies? More fake diseases? What was next, Claire? Were you going to kill him off for the insurance? The question hung in the air like a noose. Claire's silence was answer enough. Get out, Owen said quietly. Get out of my house. Mom. Get out! Claire looked around the room wildly, searching for an ally, finding none. Even the cousins who'd always taken her side were looking at her with disgust. She grabbed her purse, started for the door, then turned back to me. This isn't over, Asher. You have secrets, too. Everyone's going to know what? I stood, faced her directly. That I trusted my wife? That I believed in our marriage? That I loved you enough to never question your lies until they became impossible to ignore? She flinched as if I'd slapped her. The only secret I have, I continued, loud enough for everyone to hear, is that I've been documenting your fraud for months. The fake charity? Oh yes, I know about Hope for Hearts. I know about Caleb Wilson too. Gasps around the room. Claire's face went from white to red. "So if you want to make threats," I said, stepping closer, "remember that I have enough evidence to put you in prison, and I will use it if you come near our daughters or this family again." Claire stood there for a moment, diminished, defeated. Then she walked out, the door closing behind her with a soft click that sounded like an ending. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Juliet threw herself into my arms, sobbing. Sadie joined her, and I held my daughters while they shook with the aftershock of their mother's betrayal. "I'm so sorry," Owen was saying over and over. "We should have known. Should have questioned." "It's not your fault," I said over my daughters' heads. "Claire fooled all of us." But even as I said it, I thought about my own deception. The Bourbon Empire Claire never knew about. The wealth that could have prevented her desperation if desperation was even what drove her, and not just greed. Finn approached, his anger replaced by exhaustion. "The money, we need that money back, Asher. Emma's pregnant. We can't lose the house. You'll get it back," I promised. "Every penny, even if I have to pay it myself." He frowned. "How? No offense, but I'll figure it out. I would. But first, I had to get my daughters somewhere safe, somewhere they could process this nightmare. And I had to decide how much more truth this family could handle. Lauren arrived as we were leaving, taking in the scene with wide eyes. "What did I miss?" "Your stepmother just got exposed for fraud," Sadie told her flatly. "She told everyone Dad had cancer to steal money." Lauren's mouth dropped open. She looked at me, then at the girls, then back at me. "Holy shit." "Language," I said automatically, though my heart wasn't in it. "Dad, I'm sorry, but holy shit." We drove home in silence, the girls in the back holding hands. Claire's car was gone from the driveway. The house felt different without her in it, larger but colder, like a museum after closing. I ordered pizza, none of us having the energy to cook. We ate mechanically, avoiding the empty chair where Claire usually sat. "Dad," Sadie finally said, "what happens now?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but we'll figure it out together." "Is Mom going to jail?" Juliet asked. "Maybe. Do you still love her?" I considered lying, giving them something comfortable, but they'd had enough lies. "I love who I thought she was," I said, "but that person might never have existed." That night, after the girls had cried themselves to sleep, I sat in my office with a glass of bourbon, the good stuff, from my private collection that Claire had never known about. I thought about calling my lawyers, the real ones, starting the process of revealing everything. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I'd begin dismantling the elaborate fiction I'd built. Tomorrow I'd show Claire and everyone else exactly who Asher Davis really was. But tonight, I sat in the darkness, sipping bourbon that tasted like truth, and mourned the death of every lie I'd ever believed about love. The terminal lie was exposed, but the real revelation was just beginning. Chapter 5. The morning after Owen's house felt like waking up in someone else's life. I sat at our kitchen table, same scratched oak surface where we'd shared thousands of meals, watching Claire move around the room like a ghost of herself. Her eyes were swollen from crying all night. I'd heard her through the bedroom wall, great gasping sobs that might have moved me once. Now they just sounded like performance. February frost painted the windows, and the coffee maker gurgled its familiar rhythm, but nothing felt real. Claire set a mug in front of me, her hand trembling slightly. The coffee was perfect, 2 sugars, splash of cream, just how I'd taken it for 17 years. Funny how someone could know exactly how you like your coffee but not know you at all. "We need to talk," she said, settling across from me. She'd changed into fresh clothes, applied makeup to hide the damage, but nothing could mask the desperation radiating off her like heat from a fever. "I'm listening. Yesterday it got out of hand." I panicked. She wrapped both hands around her mug, knuckles white. "When you said you weren't sick, I didn't know what to do. Everyone was staring, and I made it worse." "You made it worse?" I kept my voice level, curious where this new version of the story would lead. "The truth is," she stopped, recalibrated, started again. The truth is, there was a mix-up at the clinic. Your name got switched with another patient's. When I saw those test results, I thought you were dying and hiding it from me. So I took matters into my own hands. By telling everyone I had cancer? To force you to get treatment. You're so stubborn about doctors always saying you're fine. I thought if the family knew, they'd pressure you into getting help. The lie was so elaborate, so carefully constructed that I almost admired it. Almost. And the $300,000? I was going to use it for your treatment, real treatment. I set up the fund to have everything ready for when you finally admitted you were sick. Her eyes welled with fresh tears. I know how this looks, but I did it because I love you, because I couldn't lose you. She reached across the table for my hand. I let her take it, felt her fingers cold and desperate against mine. In the morning light, I could see every line on her face, every small scar from our years together. This was the woman who'd held my hand through my mother's funeral, who'd cheered at every school play, who'd slow danced with me in this very kitchen on our anniversary just 6 months ago. And she was lying to my face. I need time, I said, extracting my hand gently, to process all this. Hope flickered in her eyes. Of course, whatever you need, we can get through this, Asher. We always do. The girls came downstairs then, both in their school uniforms, moving carefully like the floor might shatter. Sadie wouldn't look at Claire, while Juliet kept glancing between us like she was trying to solve an equation with missing variables. "Morning, girls," Claire said, her voice bright and brittle. "Morning," Juliet mumbled. Sadie said nothing, just grabbed an apple from the bowl and headed for the door. "Sadie, honey, don't you want breakfast?" "Not hungry?" The door slammed behind her. Claire flinched. I stood, grabbed my truck keys. "I'll drive them today." "Asher. They need space too, Claire. We all do." In the truck, Sadie finally exploded. "How can you just sit there with her, after what she did?" "It's complicated, sweetheart." "No, it's not. She lied about you dying. She stole money. Her voice cracked. "I thought I was going to lose you, Dad. I cried myself to sleep for weeks thinking you were dying." Juliet was crying silently in the back seat. I pulled over, turned to face them both. "Listen to me, both of you. What your mother did was wrong. Deeply, unforgivably wrong. But right now, I need you to trust me. I'm handling this, but I need time to do it right. Can you give me that?" "Are you going to divorce her?" Juliet asked, voice small. "I don't know yet, but whatever happens, you two are my priority. Always." After dropping them at school, I didn't go to the distillery. Instead, I drove to Louisville, to a law firm recommended by a friend who'd gone through an ugly divorce. The receptionist didn't blink at my work clothes, just showed me to a conference room that smelled like leather and old money. The lawyer, James Morrison, no relation to Claire's Dr. Morrison, was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with shrewd eyes behind designer glasses. "Mr. Davis, you said on the phone this was urgent." I laid it all out. The fake cancer documents, the stolen money, the charity fraud. I didn't mention the bourbon fortune yet. That card would be played when necessary. He took notes in precise handwriting, occasionally asking for clarification. When I finished, he leaned back, fingers steepled. "Your wife has committed multiple felonies, fraud, theft, forgery. But you need more than documents. You need proof of intent, patterns of deception." "What kind of proof?" "Financial records showing where the money went, evidence of planning emails, texts, collaborators, and if there's another party involved." He paused. "These schemes rarely happen in isolation. Is there anyone else who might be involved?" "Caleb Wilson." The name sat in my mouth like poison, but I wasn't ready to voice it yet. "I'll look into it." "Mr. Davis, I need to ask, are you safe? Your children? You think she'd hurt us?" A person who would fake their spouse's terminal illness has already crossed lines most people can't imagine. Don't assume you know her limits. That phrase haunted me as I drove home. Don't assume you know her limits. But I'd already assumed so much, hadn't I? Assumed her love was real. Assumed our life together meant something. Assumed the woman sharing my bed was who she pretended to be. I stopped at the bank, the one where I'd set up a secret account years ago for the Bourbon Empire's dividends. The manager, Stanley Roberts, had been handling my family's wealth for 2 decades, He knew about my double life, had helped maintain it. Asher, he greeted me in his private office. Everything all right? I need to move some things around, protect certain assets. His expression sharpened. Divorce? Possibly. It's complicated. It always is. He pulled up my accounts on his computer. What are we protecting? Everything she doesn't know about. And I need a new account, completely separate, just in my name. Done. His fingers flew across the keyboard. I'll transfer your liquid assets. We're talking about roughly $8 million immediately accessible, correct? $8 million. Pocket change compared to the Empire's value, but more than Claire could imagine existed. Do it. There's something else, Stanley said carefully. That medical fraud protection clause in your father's estate if your wife has committed fraud related to medical claims. She has. Then she forfeits any claim to the estate, even in divorce. Your father was paranoid but prescient. Paranoid but prescient. That was Dad all over. I wondered if he'd somehow seen this coming, or if he'd just known that money brought out the worst in people. Back home, Claire was at another shift. The house felt different without her, lighter but emptier, like a theater after the play ends. I went to our home office, opened her laptop. Password protected, of course, but she'd used the same password for years, our anniversary date. Her email was a masterwork of deception. Normal messages mixed with carefully coded ones. Nothing explicitly incriminating, but patterns emerged. Frequent exchanges with a CW had to be Caleb Wilson. References to the project and timeline and when everything is in place. One email made my blood run cold. See, the timeline needs to move up. A is getting suspicious. We need to be ready sooner than planned. Once the insurance comes through, we're free. Just a little longer. C, insurance, life insurance. I sat back, the implications washing over me like ice water. This wasn't just about the $300,000. That was seed money for something bigger. Claire wasn't just planning to steal from me, she was planning for me to not be around to object. My phone rang. Dr. Reed Thompson. Asher, I've been thinking about your situation. There's something you should know. Last month, someone called my office claiming to be you, asking for medical records. My receptionist didn't think anything of it. Your wife picks up prescriptions for you sometimes. What did they want? Everything. Your complete medical history, blood type, allergies, previous conditions, the works. Information someone would need to fake a convincing medical crisis. Or worse. Reed, I need you to document this. Write it all down. Date it. Sign it. Already done. Asher, be careful. This feels like more than fraud. That night, I installed a voice-activated recorder in the living room, tiny thing hidden behind a picture frame. If Claire was going to incriminate herself, I wanted proof. At dinner, I played the concerned but confused husband, letting her spin more elaborate lies while the girls picked at their food. I've been thinking, Claire said, cutting her chicken into precise pieces. Maybe we should take a vacation. All of us. Get away from the stress. Reconnect as a family. That sounds nice, I said neutrally. Somewhere remote. Maybe camping. You always loved the outdoors. Remote. Isolated. Where accidents happen and help is far away. Let's talk about it after things settle down. She nodded, but I caught the flash of frustration in her eyes. The timeline wasn't going according to plan. That night, she tried to initiate intimacy for the first time in months. Slipped into bed wearing the negligee I'd bought her for Valentine's Day years ago, smelling like that expensive perfume. Her hands were warm on my chest, her breath sweet with wine. I miss us, she whispered. I miss how we used to be. I let her kiss me, tasted the desperation on her lips. Some part of me, the part that remembered 20 years of marriage, wanted to respond, to pretend this was all a nightmare we could wake from. But behind my closed eyes, I saw those bank transfers, those emails, that word, insurance. I'm tired, I said gently, turning away. She persisted, hand sliding lower. Let me help you relax. Claire, stop. She recoiled like I'd slapped her. In the darkness, I heard her breathing change, quick and angry. Fine, she said, voice cold. But we can't go on like this forever, Asher. No, I thought. We can't. I lay awake long after she'd fallen asleep or pretended to. Outside, wind rattled the windows, and somewhere in the distance, a train howled its lonesome note. I thought about my father, about the empire he'd built, about the clause he'd insisted on that now felt like prophecy. The recorder in the living room would be running, capturing every word, every confession. Tomorrow I'd meet with Reed, get his statement, start building the case that would end this charade. But tonight, I lay next to a stranger wearing my wife's face, and I mourned the death of the life I'd thought I had. The simple, honest life that had never existed except in my imagination. Trust, I realized, was like bourbon. Once you broke the seal, you could never make it whole again. And Claire had shattered the bottle completely. Chapter 6. March came in wet and miserable, the kind of rain that turned Kentucky clay to mud and made everything smell like earthworms and regret. I'd been tracking Claire's deception for 3 weeks now, each discovered lie another stone in the wall I was building between us. The private investigator I'd hired worked out of a strip mall in Lexington, wedged between a pawn shop and a Chinese restaurant. Marcus Webb was former Louisville Metro Police, built like an ex-boxer who'd let himself go soft around the middle but still had granite in his eyes. "Your wife's been busy," he said, sliding a manila folder across his cluttered desk. The office smelled like cigarette smoke and burnt coffee, even though smoking had been banned in buildings for years. I opened the folder. Photos spilled out Claire entering a building I didn't recognize. Claire at a coffee shop with a man whose face was turned away. Claire at an ATM making what looked like cash withdrawals. Who's the man? Caleb Wilson, administrative coordinator at the clinic where your wife works. Marcus pulled out another photo, this one crystal clear. Caleb was younger than I'd expected, maybe 32, with that calculated casualness that tried too hard styled stubble, expensive watch, smile like a car salesman. They're having an affair? Marcus shifted in his chair, leather creaking. That's where it gets interesting. They're definitely meeting regularly, but it's not following typical affair patterns. No hotels in the middle of the day, no romantic dinners. Their meetings are more. He searched for the word businesslike. Business? They meet, they talk, they exchange envelopes sometimes. Last week she gave him a thumb drive. He gave her what looked like documents. The charity, I said, understanding flooding through me. They're running it together. Hope for Heart's Cancer Fund. Marcus pulled out more papers. Registered 2 months ago. Your wife is listed as director, Wilson as treasurer. They've got a website, marketing materials, even ran a few small fundraisers at local churches. It's elaborate. It's professional. This isn't their first rodeo, Mr. Davis. I did some digging on Wilson. He's left a trail of failed nonprofits across 3 states, always dissolving just before authorities start asking questions. And Claire knew this? She'd have to be blind not to. They've been planning this for at least 6 months based on email records from the clinic server. How did you? Don't ask questions you don't want answered. He lit a cigarette, ignoring both the law and my raised eyebrow. There's more. The 300 grand your wife stole, it's already moving. He showed me bank records, not sure how he got those either. The money had been transferred to the Hope for Hearts account, then immediately withdrawn in cash installments of $9,999, just under the federal reporting requirement. Classic money laundering, Marcus said. Keep it under 10 grand, no forms to file. The cash is probably in a safety deposit box somewhere, or already converted to something portable. Gold, maybe. Bitcoin if they're tech-savvy. Can we trace it? The paper trail ends at the cash withdrawals, but here's the interesting part. He pulled out another photo. This one showed Claire and Caleb outside a storage unit facility. They rented a unit 2 weeks ago, paid 6 months in advance, cash. My stomach turned. They were preparing to run, setting up their escape route with my family's money given in love and fear, money meant to save my life. There's something else, Marcus said, his tone shifting. Something you need to see. The last photo was grainy, taken from distance. Claire and Caleb in a parking garage, standing close. Too close. His hand was on her face, thumb brushing her cheek with an intimacy that made my chest tight. But it was Claire's expression that gutted me soft, unguarded, the way she used to look at me years ago. "I'm sorry," Marcus said quietly. "Don't be. I needed to know." but knowing and feeling were different things. The photo blurred as my eyes burned with something I refused to call tears. That afternoon, I met with Stella Rodriguez at a diner outside town. She looked like what she was, a hungry journalist who smelled blood in the water. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, recorder visible on the table between us. "This is off the record for now," I reminded her, "until you say otherwise." She stirred sugar into her coffee. "So what have you got?" I gave her everything: the fake diagnosis, the charity fraud, Caleb Wilson's history. Her eyes lit up with each revelation. "This is huge, Mr. Davis. Fraud at this scale with multiple victims, and Wilson's got a pattern across state lines? That makes it federal. I want them stopped, but I need to protect my daughters. They don't need to see their mother's crimes splashed across headlines while they're trying to process this. I can hold the story until arrests are made. But once that happens, it's public record. I can't sit on it forever. I'm not asking you to. Just be thoughtful about how you write it. There are victims here besides me." She studied me over her coffee cup. "You're different from what I expected." "How so?" "Most men in your position would be screaming for blood. You're very controlled." If she only knew. If she knew about the Bourbon Empire, about the years of deception on my side, about the rage I swallowed every night like medicine. "I've got daughters watching," I said simply. "They need to see how a man handles betrayal without becoming a monster himself." That evening, Claire came home with takeout from our favorite Thai place, or what used to be our favorite. She was trying so hard to pretend everything was normal, it was almost painful to watch. "I thought we could eat together," she said, unpacking pad thai and spring rolls. "Like old times." Sadie looked at me, waiting for permission. I nodded. We needed to maintain the facade a little longer. Dinner was a masterclass in awkwardness. Claire chattering about work, the girls responding in monosyllables, me watching it all like a movie I'd seen before. "Jennifer at work is pregnant," Claire announced. "Her third. Can you imagine? In this economy?" "Some people like big families," I said neutrally. "Some people don't think ahead." She stabbed at her noodles. "About resources, planning for the future. Right, girls? That's why we've always been careful with money." The irony was so thick I could have bottled it. "Is that why you stole $300,000? Sadie asked, voice flat. Claire's fork clattered to her plate. "Sadie, I've explained." "No, you've lied. There's a difference." "Go to your room," Claire snapped. "She stays," I said quietly. "We don't punish truth in this house." Claire's face flushed. "You're undermining me. You undermined yourself." The silence stretched until Juliet started crying. "Please stop fighting. Please." Claire reached for her, but Juliet pulled away, running upstairs. Sadie followed, leaving us alone. "You're poisoning them against me," Claire hissed. "You poisoned yourself. I'm just refusing to pretend the well water's clean." She stood abruptly, chair scraping. "How long are you going to punish me?" "I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting them." From their mother? From someone who would tell them their father was dying for money? She grabbed her purse, headed for the door. "I'm going out." "To meet Caleb?" She froze, hand on the doorknob. "What?" "Caleb Wilson, your business partner. I let the word hang. She turned slowly, face pale. "How do you have you been following me? Did you really think I'd just accept your story, after everything? It's not what you think. It never is with you." She left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I heard her car tear out of the driveway, gravel spraying. The recorder in the living room had caught it all. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, I sat in my father's study, what I'd always called the converted closet where I did paperwork. But in my mind, it was his study, where he'd taught me about bourbon and business and betrayal. I pulled out the documents I'd been gathering, bank statements, photographs, email printouts, the forged medical records, each piece evidence of how thoroughly I'd been fooled. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Mr. Davis, this is Caleb Wilson." My blood turned to ice. "What do you want?" "To talk, man to man, about Claire." "There's nothing to discuss." "There's $300,000 to discuss. Meet me tomorrow, noon. The parking garage on 3rd Street, level 4. Why would I do that? Because despite what you think, I'm not your enemy. Claire is playing us both. The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, trying to process this new development. Claire playing us both? Or was this another manipulation, another move in their game? I called Marcus Webb. I need you available tomorrow, noon, 3rd Street Garage. What's happening? I'm not sure, but I want backup. This sounds like a bad idea. Probably, but I need answers. The next morning, Claire was gone before I woke. A note on her pillow. Had to cover early shift. We need to talk tonight. I love you. I love you. 3 words that used to mean everything. Now just sounds in sequence, meaningless as smoke. I got the girls to school, then drove to the distillery. For once, I actually did my job, mopped floors, cleaned equipment, lost myself in the simple rhythm of honest work. My supervisor, Tony, found me scrubbing a tank that hadn't been used in months. Everything okay, Ash? You've been intense lately. Family stuff, I said, which was true enough. Anything I can help with? I thought about that. Tony was a good man, married 30 years, 3 kids all grown and successful. The kind of life I'd thought I was building. You ever have someone betray you? Someone you trusted completely? He leaned against the tank, considering. My brother stole my identity, ran up 40 grand in debt. Took 5 years to sort out. What did you do? Cut him off, completely. Some betrayals you can't come back from. Trust is like bourbon, I finished. Once the seal's broken, it's never the same. You've been listening to the tour guides. He clapped my shoulder. Whatever it is, Ash, protect yourself first. Then worry about forgiveness. At 11:45, I sat in my truck outside the parking garage watching Marcus position himself near the stairwell. My phone showed 11:58 when I started climbing to level 4. The garage was mostly empty, concrete and shadows, smelling like oil and exhaust. Caleb was already there, leaning against a silver BMW that cost more than Claire claimed we made in a year. Mr. Davis. He straightened as I approached. Up close, he was handsome in that calculating way, like an algorithm had designed him for trustworthy. Wilson. Thanks for coming. I know this is unusual. You're sleeping with my wife and stole $300,000. Unusual doesn't cover it. He actually laughed. Is that what she told you? That we're sleeping together? Are you denying it? God, yes. Claire's. Attractive, sure. But I don't mix business with pleasure. And your wife is definitely business. The charity, the medical fraud, all of it. Her idea, her plan. I'm just the guy who knows how to move money without raising flags. Why should I believe you? He pulled out his phone, showed me a recording app. Because I've been covering my ass since day one. Claire approached me 6 months ago with this scheme. Said her husband was rich but hiding it, that she deserved her share. My blood chilled. She knows. About the Bourbon Empire? No, but she suspects you have money hidden somewhere. Offshore accounts, inheritance, something. The cancer scheme was supposed to make you reveal it. But I didn't. Which is why she's moving to Plan B. Which is... He met my eyes. Your life insurance. She took out a policy on you 8 months ago. $2 million. You probably signed it without reading, mixed in with other papers. I thought back. Remembered Claire asking me to sign insurance updates for the girls' college funds. I'd been distracted, trusting, stupid. She's planning to kill me? Planning is a strong word. But accidents happen, especially when someone's already sick. A cancer patient taking too many pills, getting confused, having a tragic mishap who would question it. You're telling me this why? Because I'm a thief, not a murderer. I thought this was just fraud, but Claire's gotten darker, desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. What do you want? Out. I want to walk away clean. Keep what I've already taken, call it a consulting fee, but wash my hands of whatever comes next. And in return? Everything. Records, recordings, proof of her plans, enough to protect yourself and put her away. I stared at him, this parasite who'd helped destroy my family now offering to be my salvation. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. But right now, I'm the devil you know, and Claire's the one you don't. Not anymore. He handed me a flash drive. Everything's on there, including something special, a recording from last week where she discusses what happens after Asher's gone. I pocketed the drive. Stay away from my family. Already gone. I'm leaving tonight. Denver, maybe, or Phoenix. Somewhere warm and far from here. If you're lying. I'm not. Check the drive. You'll see. He walked to his BMW, turned back. For what it's worth, you seem like a decent guy. Wrong woman, wrong time. After he drove away, I sat in my truck for an hour, the flash drive burning in my pocket like a coal. Marcus appeared at my window. You okay? No, but I will be. That night, I watched the recordings alone in the garage, door locked, sound muted. Claire's voice through Caleb's hidden recorder, discussing my death like a business transaction, timeline, methods, making it look natural. The woman I'd loved, the mother of my children, planning my murder over coffee like it was a grocery list. I threw up in the utility sink, then sat on the concrete floor, shaking. Not with fear, with rage. Pure, distilled rage, aged 17 years and finally ready to be served. The next phase would begin tomorrow. But tonight, I sat in my garage, surrounded by the tools of an honest life I'd pretended to live, and I planned my resurrection. Claire thought she was playing chess. She didn't know I owned the board. Chapter 7. April in Kentucky is dogwood blossoms and derby prep, the whole state drunk on spring and possibility. But that April of 2011, I was stone-cold sober, watching my life unravel one thread at a time while planning how to weave it back together. Lauren's wedding was set for the 15th, a Saturday that promised perfect weather. My daughter from my first marriage had always been the independent one, putting herself through design school, building her career without asking for help I could have easily given. She didn't know about the bourbon fortune either, another casualty of my elaborate deception. Dad, you sure you're okay with Claire helping? Lauren asked over the phone 2 weeks before the wedding. I know things are. Complicated. Complicated. That was like calling bourbon wet. It's your day, sweetheart. Whatever makes you happy. She offered to coordinate the flowers and cake, said she wanted to help, to be part of the family. My stomach clenched. Claire had barely spoken to Lauren in years, treating her like an unwelcome reminder of my life before. Now suddenly she wanted to help? That's generous of her. Yeah, I thought so too. Lauren paused. Dad, is everything okay? Really? We're working through some things. Mom mentioned, she meant her birth mother, Sarah, who I'd divorced amicably when Lauren was 3. Mom mentioned she heard some rumors about Claire and money. The gossip mill in Kentucky ran faster than thoroughbreds. Don't worry about it. Focus on your wedding. Okay. Love you, Dad. Love you too. I hung up and immediately called Marcus Webb. I need you to check something. Claire's involved in my daughter's wedding planning. Flowers and cake specifically. You think she'd sabotage your kid's wedding? A month ago, I'd have said impossible. Now, I don't know what she's capable of. The week before the wedding, I was in the distillery's cooperage, watching barrels being built, when my phone rang. Marcus. You were right. She placed orders with 2 vendors, Magnolia Flowers and Sweet Dreams Bakery. But here's the interesting part. She also called both vendors yesterday and modified the orders. Modified how? Reduced quantities, changed specifications. The 5-tier cake is now 3 tiers. The fresh flowers are now mostly carnations. She paid the difference back to herself in cash. She's stealing from the wedding? About $3,000 worth. But there's more. The photographer she hired? It's Caleb Wilson. He said he was leaving town. Apparently not fast enough. He's listed as the official photographer under his company name, Moments Captured LLC. I stood among the half-built barrels, wood shavings at my feet, and felt something inside me char and harden like the inside of these oak casks. She wasn't just betraying me anymore. She was targeting Lauren, punishing my daughter for the crime of existing. Document everything, I told Marcus. Every receipt, every phone call. Already on it. The morning of the wedding dawned perfect clear sky, gentle breeze, the chapel looking like something from a magazine with its white columns and flowering gardens. I stood in the vestibule with Lauren, radiant in her grandmother's altered dress, and felt my throat tighten. You look beautiful, baby. Don't make me cry. This mascara cost $40. I laughed, kissed her forehead. Your mother would be so proud, meaning Sarah, who was seated inside, having gracefully accepted the role of guest rather than mother of the bride. Both of them, Lauren said generously, though we both knew Claire had never earned that title. The ceremony itself was perfect. Lauren's soon-to-be husband James cried when he saw her. Their vows were personal, funny, touching. For an hour I forgot about Claire and cancer lies and stolen money. Then came the reception. The country club ballroom should have been elegant, that's what Lauren had paid for. Instead, it looked like someone had ordered decorations from the clearance section. The lush floral arrangements were sparse bunches of carnations and baby's breath. The ambient lighting was a few candles that looked like fire hazards. "What the hell?" James's mother whispered to me. I found Claire supervising the cake table, wearing a dress too formal for the occasion, like she was competing with the bride. "The flowers seem a bit sparse," I said quietly. She didn't even look at me. "The vendor made a mistake. I'm handling it." "By handling it, you mean pocketing the difference?" Now she turned, eyes flashing. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts." "You sabotaged my daughter's wedding for $3,000. "Your daughter?" Her voice rose. "She's never been family to me. Just a reminder that you had a life before. Before you?" "Yes, I did. A honest one." Lauren appeared beside us, eyes wide with hurt. "The cake. It's falling." We turned to see the 3-tier cake, which should have been 5, listing dangerously to one side. As we watched, it toppled, sliding off the table in a cascade of fondant and buttercream. Claire gasped theatrically. "Oh no! I'll call the bakery right away! Don't!" Lauren's voice was steel. "You've done enough." The room had gone quiet, everyone watching the drama unfold. Claire's mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw satisfaction in her eyes before it was replaced by fake concern. "Lauren, honey, I'm so sorry." "You're not. You did this on purpose." "That's ridiculous. Why would I?" "Because you're a spiteful, jealous woman who can't stand that my dad had a life before you." Claire's face went red. "You little..." "Enough." I stepped between them. "Claire, leave, now. You can't kick me out. I'm your wife." "You're a stranger wearing my wife's face. Get out before I call security." She looked around the room, seeing no sympathy in any face. Even Juliet, who'd been trying to salvage some cream flowers from the cake disaster, had stopped, watching her mother with disappointment. That's when I noticed the photographer capturing everything. Not hired for candids, Caleb Wilson was documenting the disaster, probably at Claire's request, some sick trophy of her vengeance. I walked over to him. "Caleb, thought you'd left town." He lowered his camera, had the decency to look ashamed. "She offered me another $5,000. I needed the money for the move." "Get out. Leave the camera." "You can't." "I can. I will. And if those photos surface anywhere, I'll make sure every fraud you've ever committed comes to light." He must have seen something in my face, because he set down the camera and left without another word. Claire was still standing by the ruined cake, surrounded by a growing circle of empty space as guests moved away from her like she was contaminated. "This isn't over," she hissed at me. "Yes, it is." She stormed out, her heels clicking on the marble like gunshots. After she left, the room seemed to exhale collectively. Sarah, my ex-wife, appeared at my elbow. "Well, that was dramatic." "I'm so sorry." "Don't be. You didn't do this." She looked at the destroyed cake, the pathetic flowers. "Want me to make some calls? I know people." Within an hour, Sarah had mobilized an emergency response team. A bakery delivered sheet cakes. A florist brought whatever they had in stock. The country club staff rallied, transforming disaster into something salvageable. Lauren found me on the terrace later, during the dancing. "Dad, I'm sorry." "For what? This isn't your fault." "For inviting her to help. I thought maybe if I included her." "You tried to be kind. That's never something to apologize for." "Is it true? What everyone's saying? That she told people you had cancer?" I nodded, too tired to lie anymore. "My God. Dad, how are you even standing?" "Same way you are. We take the hit, we get back up, we keep going." She hugged me tight. "I love you. Love you too, baby." Inside, James had his arms around Lauren. They were swaying to some slow song. Guests had formed a protective circle around them, as if shielding them from any more chaos. The emergency cake was simple but elegant. The replacement flowers were actually prettier than what Claire had ordered: wildflowers and roses, spontaneous and genuine. Juliet found me as I was watching. "Mom left," she said quietly. "I know. She ruined everything." "No, she tried to. But look," I gestured to the dance floor where Lauren was laughing at something James whispered. "Your sister's still having her day. That's what matters." Why did Mom do this? How do you explain malice to a 16-year-old? How do you tell your daughter that her mother is capable of cruelty for sport? I don't know, sweetheart. Sometimes people become someone we don't recognize. Like she's sick. Something like that. Sadie joined us, holding a piece of the salvaged cake. For what it's worth, the cake tastes better than it looks. Silver lining? I asked. More like buttercream lining. She took another bite. Dad, are you going to divorce Mom? The question hung in the air like smoke from the candles. Probably. Good, Sadie said firmly. She doesn't deserve you. Or us, Juliet added quietly. We stood there, my daughters and I, watching joy persist despite sabotage. The band played, people danced, Lauren smiled. Life went on, even when someone tried to stop it. Later, as the reception wound down, I helped load gifts into James's truck. In the parking lot, I found an envelope under my windshield wiper. Inside, a note in Claire's handwriting. "You humiliated me. You turned my children against me. This isn't over. You think you know everything, but you don't. Ask yourself this: if I could lie about cancer, what else could I lie about? Sleep tight. C." I crumpled the note, then smoothed it out again. Evidence. Everything was evidence now. Back at the distillery that Monday, I stood in the rick house among thousands of barrels, each one holding bourbon that would age for years before it was ready. Patience, time, pressure, heat. That's what made bourbon valuable. The same forces were working on me now. Claire's betrayal was the pressure. The investigation was time. My anger was the heat. And patience? That was the hardest part. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a photo Claire and Caleb at what looked like the storage unit Marcus had mentioned. They were loading boxes. Another text. "Thought you should see this. They're moving evidence. Maybe planning to run. SR. Stella Rodriguez." The journalist had eyes everywhere. I forwarded everything to Marcus and my lawyer. Then I did what I'd been doing for months, went back to mopping floors, pretending everything was normal while the world burned down around me. That evening, Claire came home late, acting as if nothing had happened at the wedding. She made dinner spaghetti with meat sauce, garlic bread, a salad, set the table for 4. "Where are the girls?" she asked, all casual innocence. "At Owen's. They wanted space. From me." "Yes." She nodded, served herself pasta like we were having a normal meal. "You poisoned them against me. You poisoned yourself. I just refused to serve the antidote." "Clever. You've gotten clever lately, Asher. It doesn't suit you." "Neither does being naive." She twirled her spaghetti, took a deliberate bite. "You know what I think? I think you've been planning this. Using my one mistake. One mistake? The cancer fraud, the theft, the affair, sabotaging Lauren's wedding. Which one mistake? I never had an affair. Caleb Wilson says different." Her fork paused. "You've been talking to Caleb?" "Among others. I know about the storage unit, the cash withdrawals, the life insurance policy you took out on me." Now she set down her fork entirely. "You don't know as much as you think. Enlighten me." She leaned forward, eyes glittering with something dark. "Did you know your father visited me before he died? Gave me a warning about you. Said you were just like him, secretive, paranoid, controlling. Said you'd hidden things, important things. Told me to protect myself." My blood chilled. "My father never—" "Oh, but he did. Funny thing about dying men, they want to confess. He told me about accounts, properties, secrets, not specifics, but enough to know you've been lying to me our entire marriage. Even if that were true, it doesn't justify, doesn't it? You hid who you really are. I just leveled the playing field. By stealing, by fraud, by surviving. by taking what I'm owed after 17 years of lies. We stared at each other across the table, two liars recognizing each other for the first time. "Get out," I said quietly. "This is my house too." "Not anymore. I filed for divorce this morning. You'll be served tomorrow." She stood slowly, deliberately knocked her plate to the floor. Sauce splattered across the walls like blood. "You'll regret this, Asher. When you're alone, when the girls realize what you really are, when everyone knows the truth about the great Asher Davis, you'll regret this." She left, and I sat in the quiet kitchen, spaghetti sauce dripping down the wall, and thought about truth and lies and the space between them where most of life happened. Tomorrow, the real war would begin. But tonight, I cleaned up the mess, methodical and thorough, the way I'd clean up everything else Claire had destroyed. The wedding was ruined, but salvaged. My marriage was over, but I was free. And Claire? She was about to learn that sometimes the person you underestimate most is the one who's been watching you all along, patient as bourbon in the barrel, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal their true strength. Chapter 8. The morning after Lauren's wedding, I sat in Ruby Anderson's office while she reviewed everything I'd compiled. The prosecutor's space was neat as a pin, all legal books and framed degrees, but her expression was pure predator as she flipped through documents. "This is extensive, Mr. Davis. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. The fake charity alone could get her 5 to 10 years. "It's not enough." She looked up, sharp eyes studying me. "Not enough for what?" "To ensure she can't hurt anyone else. She's planning something bigger." I showed her Caleb's recording, the one where Claire discussed my life insurance, the timeline for my accident. Ruby listened, her face darkening with each word. "This changes things. We're talking conspiracy to commit murder now, but we need her to make an overt act something that shows clear intent." "You want to use me as bait?" "I want to catch her in the act, yes, but safely, controlled conditions." "How?" "You mentioned she wants you to reveal hidden assets. What if we give her that opportunity?" I thought about the Bourbon Empire, still secret, still protected. "I'm listening." Ruby pulled out a legal pad, started sketching a plan. "We stage a meeting, somewhere you control, where we can have surveillance, backup. You hint at hidden wealth, get her to incriminate herself on tape." "The distillery," I said immediately. "I want it at the distillery." "You work there as a janitor, right? Won't that seem odd?" I smiled for the first time in weeks. Trust me, it's perfect. That afternoon, I drove to the distillery and found the owner officially, that is. The man everyone thought owned it. Robert Hawthorne was my father's oldest friend, the public face of Kentucky bourbon dynasty while I stayed hidden. He knew the truth, had helped maintain my cover for years. "Asher," he greeted me in his office overlooking the production floor. "Heard you've been having some trouble." "Some trouble? That's one way to put it." "What do you need?" "The tasting room. Next Sunday evening. And I need you to not be surprised by anything that happens." Robert poured us both bourbon, the 20-year reserve. "This about your wife?" "Soon-to-be ex-wife." "She know about—" He gestured vaguely at the empire around us. "She's about to." He raised his glass. "To truth, then. Long overdue." To truth. The bourbon burned warm, tasted like honesty. I spent the week preparing. Called Owen Brown, Finn, other family members. Told them I had an important announcement about recovering their money. Everyone agreed to come. Curiosity and desperation are powerful motivators. Claire was harder to convince. She'd moved into a motel after being served divorce papers, and our communication was down to terse texts about the girls. "We need to talk," I texted, "about dividing assets. All assets." "What assets?" "You're a janitor. Things aren't always what they seem. Sunday, 5 p.m., distillery tasting room. Bring your lawyer if you want." "Why there?" "You'll understand when you arrive. And Claire, you might want to bring Caleb." "This concerns him too." 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times as she typed and deleted responses. Finally, "Fine." Marcus Webb helped with the technical setup, cameras, microphones, all hidden among the bourbon barrels and tasting displays. We did 3 walkthroughs, checking angles, testing sound. "You sure about revealing everything?" he asked. It's time. Past time, maybe. Stella Rodriguez would be there too, hidden in the back office with her camera. The exclusive she'd been promised was about to exceed her wildest expectations. Ruby Anderson positioned 2 plainclothes officers in the parking lot, 2 more in an adjacent building. If she threatens you, if she makes any aggressive move, we intervene. She won't. Claire's too smart for violence. Her weapons are lies and manipulation. Those can be just as dangerous. Sunday arrived overcast and humid, storm clouds building to the west like nature was providing dramatic atmosphere. I dressed carefully, not in my janitor's coveralls, but in the suit I wore for board meetings no one knew I attended. The girls were with Sarah, my ex-wife, for the weekend. Safe. Away from whatever was about to unfold. I arrived at the distillery early, walked through the quiet halls, inhaling the angel's share, the bourbon that evaporates during aging, said to be the angel's portion. Felt appropriate, considering I was about to play devil's advocate with my own life. The tasting room was perfect. Circular, with chairs arranged like an amphitheater, barrels lining the walls, the smell of oak and age and truth permeating everything. I'd had a projector set up, ostensibly for a presentation. Owen and Finn arrived first, looking uncertain. Asher, Owen hugged me, still treating me like the son-in-law she'd loved despite everything. Any word on getting our money back? Today, you'll have answers, I promise. Others trickled in cousins, aunts, Claire's uncle who'd contributed his retirement savings. They all looked at me with that mixture of pity and hope that had become familiar. At 5:15, Claire arrived. She'd dressed to impress or intimidate. Black dress, professional but with an edge. Hair perfectly styled. She looked like what she was pretending to be, a successful woman wrongly accused. Caleb followed her in, and I was surprised to see he'd actually come. He looked nervous, sweating despite the air conditioning. His eyes darted around like he was mapping exits. Quite the production, Claire said, taking a seat in the front row. For a janitor. Have a seat. We're about to begin. Robert Hawthorne entered then, and Claire frowned. Why is the owner here? You'll see. I stood at the front, feeling the weight of every eye, every hidden camera. Thank you all for coming. I know the past months have been difficult. You've been lied to, stolen from, manipulated, and I'm here to make it right. Claire snorted. How? Mopping floors doesn't pay that well. No, it doesn't. I clicked the remote, and the first slide appeared a photo of the distillery from 1947, my great-great-grandfather standing beside the first barrel. But owning the place does. The room went silent. My name is Asher Davis, and I own Kentucky Bourbon Dynasty. Have since my father died in 2005. The entire operation, the distillery, the distribution network, the international subsidiaries. Current valuation, $1.7 billion. Claire's face went white, then red, then white again. That's impossible. Robert, would you mind confirming? Robert stood. Asher Davis is the sole owner of this company. I've been the public face at his request, but every major decision, every expansion, every new blend, that's all been Asher. You're lying, Claire said, but her voice was weak. This is some sick joke. I clicked to the next slide: legal documents, ownership papers, bank statements showing the empire's assets. I hid this for one reason. I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I had. I wanted a simple life, an honest marriage. I looked directly at Claire. I failed on both counts. You bastard, she breathed. You complete bastard. All these years, struggling, scraping, we never struggled. I made sure we had enough, just not excess. You let me believe. She stood, shaking with rage. You let me work extra shifts, clip coupons, worry about money. I let you show me who you really were, and you did. This is entrapment. You set me up. Did I forge medical documents? Did I steal $300,000? Did I plan to kill you for insurance money? Gasps around the room. I clicked to the next slide, the forged cancer documents. Claire created these, told all of you I was dying. Another click bank statements. She stole your money through a fake charity. Another click photos of her and Caleb at the storage unit. She and Mr. Wilson have been planning to run with your money. Caleb stood. I want to make a deal. I have recordings, evidence. Shut up! Claire snarled. "It's over, Claire. We're caught." He turned to Ruby Anderson, who'd stepped out from the back office. "I'll testify. Everything. The fraud, the life insurance plot. All of it." "You son of a bitch!" Claire lunged at Caleb, but Finn caught her arm. "Enough, Claire. Enough." Ruby nodded to someone, and the plainclothes officers entered. "Claire Davis, Caleb Wilson, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, embezzlement." "This is a setup," Claire struggled as they cuffed her. "He lied, too. He's been lying for years." "The difference," I said quietly, "is my lie hurt no one. Yours destroyed families." As they led her past me, she stopped, looked me in the eyes. "I would have loved you without the money. In the beginning, I did. Maybe. But we'll never know for sure, will we? That's the poison of lies. They corrupt even the truth." She was let out, still protesting, still claiming victimhood. Caleb went quietly, already calculating his plea bargain. The room sat in stunned silence. Then Owen started crying. Relief, grief, confusion, all mingled. "The money," Finn said. "Can we get it back?" "Every penny," I assured them. "And if any is missing, I'll cover it personally." "Why?" Owen asked. "Why hide this from everyone?" "My father died bitter, divorced 3 times. Never sure if anyone loved him or his money. I didn't want that life. I wanted—" I paused, looked around the room that smelled like legacy and lies. "I wanted to matter as a person, not a bank account." "So you became a janitor?" "I became a test, and everyone in this room passed except the one person who mattered most." Stella Rodriguez emerged, camera in hand. "Mr. Davis, this is quite a story. Tell it honestly. That's all I ask." People started dispersing, shell-shocked, whispering. Owen approached me last. "I'm sorry," she said. "For Claire, for everything. You have nothing to apologize for. You're a victim here, too. Those girls, Sadie and Juliet, they're going to need us. All of us. I know, and they'll have us." After everyone left, I stood alone in the tasting room. Robert found me there an hour later, sitting among the barrels, a glass of 20-year in my hand. "How's it feel?" he asked. "Being yourself? Like taking off a costume I've worn so long I forgot it wasn't my skin. What now? Now I rebuild, honestly this time. The girls know? Tomorrow. I'll tell them everything tomorrow." "And after that?" I took a sip, let the bourbon tell its story on my tongue, corn, and char, time and truth. "After that, I'll figure out who Asher Davis really is when he's not pretending to be someone else." My phone buzzed. Text from Lauren. "Dad, the news is everywhere. Are you okay?" "I'm free," I texted back. And for the first time in 17 years, maybe longer, it was true. Outside, thunder rolled across Kentucky like applause, and the rain finally came, washing everything clean. I stood at the window, watching it fall, and thought about Claire in a cell somewhere, hopefully finally understanding that the elaborate trap she'd walked into was one she'd built herself, lie by lie, until the truth became her prison. Tomorrow, I'd face my daughters. Tomorrow, I'd deal with the media storm. Tomorrow, I'd start the long process of rebuilding trust. But tonight, I was just a man in his distillery, drinking bourbon that tasted like honesty, finally free of every lie except the ones he told himself. And those would take longer to dissolve. But bourbon had taught me patience, and I had all the time in the world. Chapter 9. The morning after Claire's arrest, I woke to 17 missed calls and a front yard full of news vans. Stella Rodriguez had kept her word the story didn't break until after the arrests, but once it did, it spread like wildfire through drought-dry Kentucky gossip channels. By dawn, everyone from Louisville to Lexington knew about the Bourbon Empire janitor whose wife faked his cancer for cash. "Dad, there's people with cameras on our lawn." Juliet stood in my bedroom doorway, still in her pajamas, looking younger than her 16 years. "Don't answer the door. Keep the curtains closed." I grabbed my phone, scrolled through the messages. 3 interview requests from national news outlets. 2 calls from distillery board members. 1 text from my ex-wife, Sarah. "Girls can stay here if you need. God bless Sarah." Sadie appeared behind her sister, fully dressed, arms crossed. "We're going to have to face this eventually. Not today." I pulled on yesterday's jeans, found a clean shirt. pack bags. We're going to Sarah's for a few days. Running away? Sadie's tone had an edge she'd inherited Claire's sharp tongue along with my stubborn streak. Strategic retreat. There's a difference. We slipped out the back while reporters knocked on the front door, drove Sarah's borrowed minivan instead of my truck. The girls huddled in the back seat, processing their new reality. Their father was a billionaire, their mother was in jail, and their family had become Kentucky's most sensational scandal. Sarah's house in Cincinnati was a 2-hour drive and a world away from the chaos. She met us at the door, 45 now, silver threading through dark hair she'd stopped dyeing, laugh lines earned from a happier second marriage. "You look like hell," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like vanilla and sympathy. "Feel worse. Girls, Lauren's in the kitchen making comfort food. Go help." Once they were gone, Sarah studied me. "You really own the whole distillery?" "Every barrel." "And Claire really tried to—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Yeah." "Jesus, Asher, what are you going to do? Right now? Hide. Tomorrow? Fight. After that?" I shrugged. "Figure out how to explain to my daughters why both their parents are liars." Sarah's husband, Tom, a genuinely good guy who sold insurance and coached Little League, set me up in their guest room without asking questions. That night, I sat on an unfamiliar bed in a borrowed t-shirt, listening to my daughter's muffled voices through the wall, and let myself feel the full weight of what had happened. My phone rang. Robert Hawthorne, the distillery's public face for so many years. "The board's in full panic mode," he said without preamble. "Stock price dropped 12% at opening. It'll recover. That's not the point. We need a statement, a plan. You can't just disappear. Watch me. Asher. 48 hours, Robert. Give me 48 hours to get my daughter stable. Then I'll deal with the board, the media, all of it. The story's already going national. CNN picked it up. Of course it had. Wife fakes husband's cancer. Husband secretly owns billion-dollar company. It was like Christmas for the 24-hour news cycle. The next morning, Ruby Anderson called with updates. "Caleb Wilson's talking, singing like a bourbon-drunk canary. He's angling for a plea deal." "What's he saying?" "That it was all Claire's idea. He's got recordings, documents, proof she was the mastermind. He was just the money man, or so he claims." "And Claire?" "Maintaining innocence. Says you set her up, that you manipulated everyone. Her lawyer's trying to paint you as the villain-controlling husband who hid assets and drove her to desperation." I laughed, bitter as black coffee. "She planned to kill me for insurance. We have evidence of that too, thanks to Wilson. The prosecutor wants to add attempted murder charges, but that's harder to prove. The fraud case is solid, though. She's looking at 10 to 15 years minimum. 10 to 15 years. Juliet would be in her 30s when Claire got out. Sadie might have kids of her own." "The family wants to testify," Ruby continued. "Owen, Finn, even some cousins. They want the judge to know how much damage she did." "And my daughters? Will they have to testify?" "Not in the criminal trial, but Asher." Her voice softened. "There will be a civil trial, too. The family members who were defrauded, they have grounds to sue Claire personally. I already promised to repay them. And that's admirable. But legally, they're entitled to damages from her. Whatever assets she has, she doesn't have any assets. Everything was in my name or joint accounts I've already frozen. Then they'll get judgments against future earnings. The point is, this isn't going away quickly. Your daughters are going to be dealing with this for years." After I hung up, I found Sadie on Sarah's back porch, staring at her phone. "Don't read the comments," I said, sitting beside her. "Too late." She showed me the screen a news article with hundreds of comments below. Some supporting me, some calling me as guilty as Claire, others spinning conspiracy theories about the bourbon industry. "People love to judge situations they don't understand," I said. "Did you know?" She looked at me directly. "When you married Mom, did you know she was capable of this?" "No, if I had, you hid the money. That's a kind of lie, too." She was right, of course. "Yes, it is. So maybe Mom's not the only one to blame." The words stung worse than any of Claire's betrayals. "You're right. I made choices that led us here. I'm not innocent. But you didn't steal. You didn't fake cancer." "No, I didn't." She leaned against my shoulder, something she hadn't done in years. "I hate her. Is that wrong? To hate your own mother? You feel what you feel. Hate, love, anger, it's all tangled up right now. That's normal. Will it get better? Different. Not sure about better. That evening, Stella Rodriguez called. I'm running a follow-up story. Want to give your side? No comment. Asher, Claire's lawyer, is shopping her version to every outlet that will listen. She's painting herself as a victim of emotional abuse, saying you gaslit her for years with the hidden money. Let her talk. The truth already came out. The truth needs defending sometimes. One interview. Let people see the real you, the father trying to protect his kids, not the secretive billionaire. My daughters don't need to see their father all over the news. They need to see their father fighting back, standing up for them, for the truth. I thought about it, watching Juliet help Tom with a puzzle at the dining room table, her face scrunched in concentration. Sadie was helping Lauren with dinner, their laughter drifting from the kitchen the first time I'd heard her laugh since the arrest. One interview, I said, but it happens on my terms. 2 days later, we went home. The news vans were gone, moved on to fresher scandals. But the aftermath remained neighbors who stared, friends who didn't know what to say, the empty space where Claire used to be. I sat with Stella in my living room, cameras rolling, and told the story simply. No vindication, no venom, just facts. The inheritance I'd hidden to test love. The cancer lie that destroyed trust. The family torn between truth and deception. Do you regret hiding your wealth? Stella asked. I regret not trusting Claire with the truth from the beginning, but I also regret trusting her at all. It's complicated. Your daughters, how are they handling this? They're stronger than they should have to be. What would you say to Claire if she was watching? I looked directly at the camera, imagining her in a cell somewhere, watching on a small TV. I would say that I loved you, really loved you, and that love made me blind to who you really were. But our daughters deserve better than what we gave them, the lies, the secrets, all of it. They deserve truth, even when it hurts. And what's next for you? Rebuilding. Honestly this time. No more hiding, no more pretending. Just truth. The interview aired that night. I didn't watch, but Sadie did. You did good, Dad, she said afterward. Mom's going to hate it. Probably. Good, she said fiercely. Let her hate it. Let her know we're not hiding anymore. That night I stood in the kitchen where Claire had made thousands of meals, where she'd laughed and cried and planned my fictional death. The bourbon glass in my hand was from my grandfather's collection, the whiskey older than my failed marriage. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and meetings, damage control and decisions. But tonight, I was just a father in an empty kitchen, drinking expensive bourbon that tasted like honesty, wondering how two people who'd once loved each other could become such accomplished strangers. The truth had set us free, but freedom, I was learning, came with its own price. Chapter 10. September arrived with courthouse summons and spider lilies blooming blood red in abandoned lots. The Fayette County Courthouse stood like a limestone guardian in downtown Lexington, and I'd gotten to know every crack in its steps over the past months. Mr. Davis, they're ready for you. Ruby Anderson's assistant, a young guy named Derek who wore bow ties unironically, led me through familiar hallways that smelled like old paper and floor wax. The deposition room was beige and merciless, fluorescent lights making everyone look guilty of something. Claire sat across the table in an orange jumpsuit that washed out her complexion. Her lawyer beside her, a sharp-dressed woman named Patricia Morse, who'd built a career defending the indefensible. Let's go on record, the court reporter said, fingers poised over her machine. Claire wouldn't look at me. 4 months since her arrest, and she'd lost weight. Her face drawn into angles I didn't recognize. The expensive perfume was gone, replaced by industrial soap and something that might have been desperation. Mr. Davis, Patricia Morse began, you've claimed complete ignorance of your wife's financial struggles, yet you hid assets worth $1.7 billion throughout your marriage. Isn't that correct? I maintain privacy about inherited wealth, yes. Privacy? She said it like it tasted sour. Is that what we're calling it? Ruby intervened. Counsel, Mr. Davis's financial privacy isn't illegal. Your client's fraud is... I'm establishing pattern of deception in the marriage. Then let's establish all patterns, Ruby shot back. Like your client taking out life insurance on Mr. Davis without his knowledge. Claire flinched. I saw at that tiny tell she had when cornered. The deposition went on for 3 hours. Every detail of our marriage dissected, examined, held up to harsh light. By the end, I felt hollow as an empty barrel. One last question, Patricia said. Do you believe you bear any responsibility for driving Claire to these actions? I looked at Claire then, really looked at her. Saw the woman I'd married, the woman she'd become, the stranger she'd always been. I bear responsibility for my lies. She bears responsibility for hers. That's how truth works. Outside the courthouse, Marcus Webb was waiting by my truck, smoking despite Kentucky's best efforts to make everyone quit. How'd it go? He asked. Like a root canal performed by someone who enjoys their work. Could be worse. Could be the criminal trial. That was next month. The main event, as Ruby called it. Any word from Caleb Wilson? I asked. Took the plea. 7 years, out in 4 with good behavior. He's already been transferred to minimum security. And his testimony? Damning. He's got recordings of Claire discussing your life insurance, planning the accident. She mentioned something about bourbon and cliffs, making it look like you were drunk and fell. My blood chilled despite the September heat. She was really going to do it. According to Wilson, she was 2 weeks from implementing when you exposed everything. You saved your own life by revealing the truth. I drove home thinking about timing, about the thin line between revelation and disaster. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I might have been dead, my daughters orphaned by greed. The girls were at school. We'd enrolled them in a private academy outside Lexington where their story was gossip but not gospel. They came home quieter now, older somehow. There's a letter, Sadie said that afternoon, dropping an envelope on the kitchen counter. From Mom. It was addressed to both girls, but they hadn't opened it. Do you want to read it? I asked. Do you think we should? Juliet clutched her backpack straps like armor. That's your choice, not mine. They exchanged glances. Then Sadie tore it open. Her eyes scanned the pages, Claire's handwriting, still perfect even from jail. She says she's sorry, Sadie summarized, voice flat. Says she did it for us, to give us a better life. Says you drove her to it by hiding the money. And she wants us to visit. The room went quiet except for the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, another inheritance I'd hidden, now displayed honestly. We don't have to, I said carefully. I know. Sadie folded the letter, precise creases like she was containing something toxic. But maybe we should, once, to tell her what we think. I don't want to see her, Juliet said quietly. You don't have to, Sadie told her sister. But I do. I need to look her in the eye and ask her why my pain was worth $300,000. 2 weeks later, I drove Sadie to the Kentucky Correctional Institution for Women. The visitors' room smelled like disinfectant and despair, filled with families trying to bridge gaps that prison bars made visible. Claire entered in handcuffs they removed once she sat. She'd aged 5 years in 5 months, gray showing at her roots, lines carved by regret, or maybe just bad fluorescent lighting. Sadie. Her voice broke on our daughter's name. Don't. Sadie's voice was steel, pure Davis stubbornness. I'm not here for reunion. I'm here for answers. I never meant. You told me Dad was dying. I planned his funeral in my head, picked out songs, wrote a eulogy. I was 16 years old, planning my father's funeral, and you knew it was a lie. Claire's composure cracked. I was desperate. You were greedy. Your father hid everything. We lived like church mice while he sat on billions. We lived fine. We had enough. You wanted more. For you, for your future. My future? Sadie laughed, bitter as burnt coffee. My future is therapy twice a week and kids at school calling my mom a criminal. That's the future you gave me. Claire reached across the table, but Sadie pulled back. I'm testifying, Sadie said, at your trial, for the prosecution. Claire's face went white. You can't. I can. I will. Because someone needs to tell the truth about what you did to this family. I'm your mother. No. Sadie stood. You're the woman who gave birth to me. There's a difference. She walked out without looking back. I stayed for a moment, Claire and I facing each other across scratched plastic and wounded history. "She hates me," Claire whispered. "She's hurt. You turned her against me. You turned yourself against her, against all of us." "I loved you," she said, suddenly fierce. "Before the money, before the lies, I loved you." "Maybe, but you love the idea of wealth more." "That's not—" She stopped, looked at her hands. "The trial starts next week. I know. I'm going to lose. Probably. Will you?" She swallowed hard. "Will you bring them to visit? After? When I'm serving whatever sentence they give me?" I thought about Juliet, who still had nightmares. About Sadie, who'd grown hard as bourbon barrel char. About myself, still untangling love from lies. If they want to come, I won't stop them. But I won't force them either. That's fair, I guess. It's honest. That's all I can offer anymore. The guard announced visiting hours were over. Claire stood, turned back. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not for what I tried to take, but for what I destroyed getting there." I watched them lead her back to her cell, this woman I'd loved and lived with and never really known. Outside, Sadie was waiting by the truck, staring at the prison walls like they might explain something. "You okay?" I asked. "No, but I will be. That was brave, what you did in there. It was necessary." She looked at me. "The trial's going to be worse, isn't it?" "Yeah, but we'll get through it. Together." "Together," she agreed, and we drove home through Kentucky hills painted gold by dying light, both of us learning that justice was just another word for organized heartbreak. Chapter 11. The trial began on a Tuesday that couldn't decide if it wanted to be summer or fall. October in Kentucky was like that, 1 foot in each season, uncommitted to either. The courthouse was packed. Media from 3 states, every cousin and church friend with an opinion, and strangers drawn to drama like flies to spilled bourbon. I sat behind the prosecutor's table with Sadie and Owen. While Juliet stayed home with Sarah, she couldn't face seeing her mother in chains. Claire entered in a navy suit Patricia Morse had chosen, professional but soft, trying to look like a misguided housewife instead of a calculating criminal. Our eyes met across the courtroom. She tried to smile, small and sad, but I looked away. The time for smiles had passed. "All rise," the bailiff announced. "The Honorable Judge Margaret Hamilton presiding." Judge Hamilton was 70-something with silver hair and eyes that had seen every shade of human failure. She didn't suffer fools or theatrics, which gave me hope for swift justice. Ruby Anderson opened for the prosecution, laying out the case like dealing cards, each piece of evidence precise, damaging, undeniable. The forged medical documents appeared on screens. Bank records showed the money trail. Caleb Wilson's recordings played Claire's voice planning my demise over coffee and casual conversation. The defendant didn't just steal money, Ruby concluded. She stole trust. She stole peace of mind. She told children their father was dying, told a mother her son-in-law was terminal. This wasn't desperation, it was cruelty calculated for cash. Patricia Morse painted a different picture. Claire was a victim, she argued, driven to extremes by a controlling husband who hid wealth while his family struggled. "My client made mistakes," she admitted, "but ask yourself what would drive a loving mother, a devoted wife, to such lengths. Desperation, fear, and yes, anger at discovering 17 years of deception." The witnesses came in waves. Dr. Reed Thompson testified about the forged documents. Marcus Webb presented his surveillance. Stella Rodriguez discussed the public impact. Each testimony another nail in the case Patricia was trying to build around victimhood. Then came Finn Martinez, Claire's own brother. "She called me crying," he testified, voice shaking. "Said Asher was dying, that they needed money for experimental treatment. I took out a second mortgage. My wife was pregnant, we needed that money for our baby. But Claire needed it more, or so I thought." "How do you feel about the defendant now?" Ruby asked. Finn looked at Claire. "She's not my sister anymore. My sister wouldn't have done this." Claire broke then, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The jury watched, some sympathetic, others unmoved. Day 3 brought Caleb Wilson in shackles and a plea deal. He was skinnier, prison orange hanging loose, but his testimony was sharp as aged bourbon. "It was her idea from start to finish," he said. "I just moved the money. She talked about insurance, about accidents, said Asher was worth more dead than divorced." "Did you believe she would actually harm Mr. Davis?" "By the end, yes, she was desperate, and desperate people do desperate things." Patricia cross-examined viciously, painting Caleb as a liar, saving himself, but the damage was done. The jury had heard Claire planning murder over casual conversation. Day 4 was my turn. "State your name for the record." "Asher Davis." "Mr. Davis, tell us about discovering the fraudulent medical documents." I spoke simply, letting facts tell the story, the fake diagnosis, the family gathering, the moment Claire's lies collapsed. I kept emotion out of it, though my heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. "Why did you hide your wealth?" Patricia asked on cross-examination. "I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I had. And you don't think that deception contributed to this situation?" "My deception was wrong, but it didn't justify fraud or planning murder." "Alleged planning. I heard the recordings, counselor. Nothing alleged about it." Then came the moment I dreaded Sadie taking the stand. 18 now, poised despite everything, but I saw her hands tremble as she swore to tell the truth. "My mother told me my father was dying," she said, voice clear despite tears rolling down her cheeks. "I spent months preparing to lose him, planning how to take care of my sister, how to be strong, and it was all a lie." "How has this affected you?" Ruby asked gently. "I don't trust anyone anymore. When your mother can lie about something like that, how can you believe anyone about anything?" Claire made a sound half sob, half moan. Several jurors were crying too. The defense barely cross-examined, knowing wounded children make dangerous witnesses. Closing arguments came Friday afternoon. Ruby was brilliant, weaving evidence into a narrative of escalating greed and cruelty. Patricia did her best, but you can't defend the indefensible, only make it slightly more palatable. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. We waited in a small room that smelled like burnt coffee and anxiety. Owen held my hand, strange comfort from my criminal wife's mother, but grief makes unexpected allies. "Has reached a verdict," the bailiff announced, and we filed back in. Claire stood as the foreman read. "On the count of fraud in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. 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 Each count another stone in the wall between Claire and freedom. On the count of conspiracy to commit murder." The courtroom held its breath. "We find insufficient evidence for conviction." Claire sagged with relief. Though 15 guilty verdicts out of 16 was hardly victory, Judge Hamilton scheduled sentencing for the following week. Claire was led away, looking back once. Our eyes met, and for a moment, I saw the woman I'd married scared, small, human. Then the door closed, and she was gone. Outside, reporters swarmed. I pushed through, Sadie beside me, both of us exhausted past feeling. "Justice?" one shouted. "Do you feel like you got justice?" I stopped, considered. "I got truth. That's all I wanted." At home, Juliet was waiting on the porch, Sarah beside her. "Is it over?" she asked. "The trial is. Is Mom going to prison?" "Yes," she nodded, processing. "For how long?" "We'll know next week." "Good," she said quietly, then louder. "Good." That night, I sat with my daughters watching some mindless movie, none of us really watching. We were together, wounded but whole, learning to be a family without the person who'd tried to destroy us. "Dad?" Juliet said during a commercial. "Was any of it real? With Mom?" I thought about 17 years of marriage, 2 daughters, countless moments of what felt like love. "Some of it," I said. "Maybe. But real or not, it's over now." "And we're okay?" I pulled both girls close, these survivors of someone else's greed. "We will be." Chapter 12. The morning of sentencing arrived with unexpected snow, just a dusting that turned Lexington into something from a snow globe, pretty but fragile, one shake from chaos. Judge Hamilton looked at Claire with something between pity and disgust. "Mrs. Davis, you betrayed the most fundamental trusts of marriage, of motherhood, of family. You told your children their father was dying. You stole from people who loved you. You planned, though thankfully failed to execute, murder for money. Claire stood straight, Patricia Morse beside her like a well-dressed shadow. However, the court recognizes this is your first offense, and that your husband's deception, while not criminal, created circumstances that contributed to your actions. The judge's gaze shifted to me, heavy with meaning. Therefore, this court sentences you to 12 years incarceration, with possibility of parole in 7. 12 years. Juliet would be 28 when her mother got out. Sadie would be 30. Claire turned to look at us. "I'm sorry," she mouthed. Sadie looked away. Juliet grabbed my hand. I nodded once acknowledgement, not forgiveness, and then they led her away. Afterward, we stood in the snow outside the courthouse, flakes melting on our faces like cold tears. "It's really over," Sadie said. "The legal part," I corrected. "The rest takes longer." 6 months later, spring came early and generous, dogwoods blooming like nature's apology for a hard winter. The distillery was thriving, apparently. Scandal sells bourbon. We'd launched a new blend called Truth, aged 12 years like Claire's sentence. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. I'd moved us to a new house on the edge of Lexington, bigger but not ostentatious, with room for the girls to heal and grow. No more pretending to be poor, but no flaunting wealth either. Balance, like good bourbon, was everything. "Dad, I got in!" Sadie burst through the door, acceptance letter in hand. University of Kentucky, pre-law. She wanted to be a prosecutor, she said, to make sure people like Claire faced justice. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I want to help people who've been lied to, cheated. I want to be their voice." "You'll be brilliant at it." Juliet was different, quieter, artistic. She'd started painting, dark things at first, but lately lighter, softer. Healing happens in different shades. "I'm going to visit her," Juliet announced at dinner one night. "Mom?" Sadie's voice was sharp. "She's still our mother. She's a criminal. She's both." Juliet looked at me. "Will you take me?" "If you're sure. I need to see her, to understand." So we went, on a Sunday that smelled like rain and regret. Claire had aged more. Prison does that, strips away everything soft, leaves only edges. "Juliet," her voice broke. "You came. I had questions. Ask. Did you ever love us? Really?" Claire's face crumpled. "Every day, every moment." "That was real." "Then how could you?" "I convinced myself it was for you. For your futures. But really," she looked at her hands. "Really, I was jealous, angry, greedy. I wanted what I thought your father was hiding." "He was hiding it." "Yes, but that didn't give me the right to steal, to lie, to plan." She couldn't finish. "To plan to kill him." "Yes." They stared at each other, mother and daughter, separated by bulletproof glass and sharper things. "I forgive you," Juliet said finally. "Not for you, for me, because hating you is too heavy to carry." Claire sobbed then, ugly and raw. "Thank you. But I won't visit again. This is goodbye." We left her crying. This woman who'd gambled everything and lost. Outside, Juliet was quiet. "You okay?" I asked. "Better. Closure helps." A year passed, then 2. The scandal faded to whisper, then memory. Sadie graduated summa cum laude, headed to law school. Juliet got into art school in New York, her portfolio full of paintings about truth and lies and the spaces between. Lauren had another baby, a boy she named after me. "For the grandfather who survived," she said. Owen Brown still visited, bringing casseroles and guilt, but we'd found a rhythm. Even Finn came around eventually, our shared betrayal becoming unexpected friendship. "You ever think about dating?" he asked one evening over bourbon, the good stuff. No point pretending anymore. "Sometimes. But trust issues," I said, and we both laughed, bitter but real. 3 years after the trial, I met someone. Rebecca, a financial advisor who knew my story, didn't care about my money and called me on my bullshit. She was divorced too, understood baggage, didn't try to fix me. "You're scared," she said after 6 months of dancing around something real. "Terrified." "Good. Means you're learning." The girls liked her, Sadie, because Rebecca was smart and took no prisoners in court. Juliet, because she understood art and pain and how they're often the same thing. "You going to marry her?" Juliet asked during Christmas break. Rebecca in the kitchen making cookies that would definitely burn because she couldn't cook worth damn. "Maybe, if I can trust again." "You trust us. That's different." "No," Sadie said, joining us. "It's not. Trust is trust. You either do or don't." "When did you get so wise?" "Prison visits and therapy, expensive education." 5 years after Claire's conviction, I stood in the distillery's tasting room, the same room where everything had exploded, waiting. But this time for something different. Rebecca walked down an aisle lined with bourbon barrels, wearing a simple dress and a smile that promised honesty. The girl stood beside me, Sadie as my best woman, Juliet holding rings. "You sure about this?" Rebecca whispered when she reached me. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." "Good enough." We said vows that mentioned nothing about forever, everything about truth. About choosing each other daily, honestly, without pretense or hidden fortunes. Later at the reception, I watched my daughters dance Sadie with her new boyfriend, a prosecutor, naturally. Juliet alone, but content, lost in music and movement. "They turned out okay," Robert Hawthorne said, joining me at the bar. "Despite everything. Or because of it. Fire either destroys or refines. Your girls are pure gold." That night, after guests had gone and Rebecca was asleep beside me, snoring, which she'd warned me about full disclosure, she'd said, I stood on the porch looking at stars. Somewhere, Claire was looking at the same sky through prison bars. I'd heard she'd found religion, was teaching literacy to other inmates, trying to rebuild something from the ashes of what she'd burned. I didn't hate her anymore. Didn't love her either. She was just part of the story, a chapter that ended so others could begin. The next morning, I woke to Rebecca making terrible coffee and burning toast, Juliet painting in the garden, Sadie on the phone arguing case law with someone. Life. Messy, honest, imperfect life. I thought about bourbon aging in barrels, about time and pressure and heat creating something complex from simple ingredients, about truth surfacing no matter how long you try to keep it hidden. "Hey," Rebecca said, handing me coffee that tasted like motor oil. "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm good. And for the first time in years, maybe ever, I meant it." The truth had cost everything: marriage, innocence, the simple life I'd built on complicated lies. But in its place, something real had grown. Scarred but strong, like good bourbon from a charred barrel, my family had survived the fire. We were different now, harder in some ways, softer in others. But we were honest. Finally, completely honest. And that, I'd learned, was worth more than all the bourbon in Kentucky. What strikes me most about this story isn't the hidden billions or even the fake cancer scheme. It's how two people who claim to love each other spent 17 years perfecting their deceptions instead of building trust. Asher tested Claire's love by hiding his wealth, and Claire responded by planning his murder for insurance money. It makes you wonder if their daughters ever had a chance at learning what genuine love looks like. Maybe the real tragedy here is that both of them got exactly what they were looking for: proof that the other couldn't be trusted.